She likes me, run a fresh push me to her. Say go that road, yeah. Make you go that road, say go that road.
Ayé ti wá dáadé báyìí o. Ṣé àwọn àgbà bọ̀ wọ́n ní bí ebi bá kúrò nínú iṣẹ́ ti bùṣe èyí ló mú àjọ adójútèbí ni Àkànní Akànjí Farm pèsè àwọn èrè oko fún jíjẹ ní ìrọ̀rùn láìsí àbàwọ́n kan àti ìnira rárá. Àwọn èrè oko bíi àgbàdo, ẹ̀gẹ́, iṣu, ewébẹ̀ àti àwọn èso lóríṣiríṣi, ẹran ìgbẹ́, ẹja odò, ìgbín àti bẹ́ẹ̀ bẹ́ẹ̀ lọ. A tún ń ta àwọn ohun jíjẹ fún àwọn oníbàárà wa tí wọn kò bá náwó lọ́wọ́ lásìkò àti ra oúnjẹ lọ́dọ̀ wa, ṣùgbọ́n tí wọ́n sì ṣe ìlérí wípé wọn yóò san owó náà padà kété tí wọ́n bá ti rí owó náà níparí oṣù. Pàpàǹbarì rẹ̀ ni wípé a tún lè kó èyíkéyìí nínú àwọn èrè oko lọ káàkiri àgbáláyé. Ẹ̀yin ẹ ṣáà ti kàn sí wa lórí ẹ̀rọ ìbánisọ̀rọ̀ Àkànní Akànjí Farm 08034564577 àti 09077901303. Àkànní Akànjí Farms àwa fún yín lọ́jọ́kọ́jọ́.
Of justice, the deity of the omnipresence, the master negotiator. Ajé is not a witch. Ẹni àpè tí ò jẹ́ ti dẹni ẹbọra. Ẹni abápè tó bá jẹ́ là ń pè lájẹ́. Ajé is not a witch. Ifa is the voice of Olodumare. Olodumare is not God. Eshu is not Satan. Eshu is not Satan.
It's not something that you can the privileges.
No one can trick me with
But we'll see how it goes. But before I start, I want to say something based on what I've watched about my ancestors and how they fight their wars. The greatest weapon for war is not is not your tools. It's not the number of the soldiers, but it is in the courage that lies in the heart of the general, the field marshal, the leaders. When you have the right general, the war is always a great war to fight. This is the secret of people like Napoleon, Master General, George Washington, a beautiful general, and of course, our own good generals in times of old. Many of them are motivators on the field, on the battlefield. Now, when we're talking about the Kiriji War, which is the same as the Ekiti Parapa War, there are three major characters that shaped this war. And all the tensions can be narrowed down to these three people. Actually, four people. But the fourth one wasn't really a military strategist, so we probably will not go into details with him. And these three people that we're talking, number one is Arela Tosa of Ibadan. The Kiriji War started while he was the Bali at Ibadan. The number two person that is a major character in the Kiriji War is a man from Okemesi in present day Ekiti State that we popularly call Fabumi of Okemesi. And then the number three major character of the Kiriji War was a man from Ijesha that we know as Ogedengbe. And then the number four person is an Awujale at Jebu, who we call Awujale Afidipote. These are the four major characters of this war. So before we go into the issues, let's discuss about the three military personalities first, so that we can understand the background to the war. I won't talk much about Awujale because, I mean, It's more about diplomacy and trade embargoes for him. So his war was more of a diplomatic one, not a military one. So we'll take it from the three main generals. Now, first person I want to talk about will be Are Latosa. So now Latosa was the like a de facto Are Onokakanfo. That is one. So he was the one who held that title for the last time in an independent Yoruba country. That was the last area on the Kakanfo before everything. We lost our territorial independence and now became a part of Nigeria. And all the Kakanfos that came after him, actually, there have been three Kakanfos that came after him. All of them have been more of ceremonial. They did not hold the titles, the privileges that come with the title. And the three Kakanfos that came after him were first was Akintola, then we had Mushud Kashima Wabiola, and then we have the present Gani Adams. So, but prior to that, the last one was Are Latosa. So now his full name was Obadoke Latosa, and as we know, at some point he converted to Islam, and then his name became Momodu Inyoda Ashubairo or Ashubiaro. Is that Ashubairo or Ashubiaro? Ashubiaro. Baba Kare ràn mí lọ́wọ́ now. Is it Ashubiaro or Ashubiaro? Uh,
It should be
I'm not good.
Ashubiaro.
Ashubiaro.
Yeah.
So I know Aro means die, but I don't know if there's another meaning to that. But yeah,
No,
Ashu.
arrow is always when you put it. Oman, I don't know how to do the analysis in English. Oman, shoe,
Oh,
Oman,
okay.
do Oman, color might change.
Oh, that color.
Ben,
Okay, Ashubiaro.
Ben.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right, so that's because they usually use that in a lot of his panegyrics. He's praising Ashubiaro. So I wanted to know if there was something significant to that. But I mean, thanks. Yeah. So now, he was a great warrior, very great, very powerful guy, but he was a terrible leader. He wasn't diplomatic. He didn't understand politics, and so that was one of the things that caused the setback in those times, which we'll go into. He was a very ruthless man and lacked the ability to use diplomacy to handle things. Everything about him is recklessness, war, aggression, you know. And so he ruled Ibadan at the peak of his greatness, and that is from 1871 to 1885. Now, Latusa was born at a place called Ilora. So his father's name was Ore Latosa. Is either Ore or Ore. I don't know how to call those names well. Ore Latosa. So his father was a big time farmer. His father had a large estate, a big palm oil farm. So at the early stages of his life, he followed his father's footsteps. But as time went on, he got bored of farming, and like many youths with a high drive for combat, for war, for campaigns, he decided to go to Ibadan and enlist in the camp of one of the many warlords. Ibadan then had so many warlords; there were many of them. So, well, young boys across Yoruba country would just come to Ibadan. And when they come, they would just enlist in, you see, the legends of many of these Ibadan warriors, Ogumola, Ibikunle, Agbeni, they're known all across Yoruba land. People sit in palm wine shops and everything to talk. Ogumola did this, Ogumola did that. And sometimes they even import the songs that they used to praise them at Ibadan. So most of them, when they decide that they are going to migrate to Ibadan, they always plan to go with an intent of enlisting in the army of the man that they resonate with the most. So they will say, "Oh, when I go, I will go and join Latusa's army." Or somebody will say, "Oh, I'll go and join Ado's army." There were lots of them. There were lots. And then there was the Eleko, who was the greatest general of all times at that time, before life happened, you know. So at the early stages of his life, he now decided that he was going to go, and then he went and he enlisted in the camp of one of them. So he arrived at Ibadan in 1852, and the man that he resonated with the most was Bashorun Ogunmola. Ogumola was a great time. One of the also a very reckless guy, but at least he handled things with more diplomacy. Ogumola was the guy in Ibadan controlling the estate when the British first arrived, and they realized that Ogumola was too smart to play along with the Mesujamba they were bringing with them. They wanted to use the tensions in Yoruba land to use it to conquer Yoruba land, and Ogumola was too smart. So they arranged the gift for Ogumola. The way they killed the Aztecs, they put some things in a there was a kind of silk dress that was very coveted then. They brought it from China. It used to come from the Silk Road, and then it will come to England, and then they'll ship it to Africa. So it's one of the favorite fabrics that they liked at that time. So they brought one for Gumola, and then what they did was that they put poison. They put is it smallpox or something on that? So when it was handed to Ogumola, Ogumola like put it on. He wore it that evening for an occasion, and that night he fell sick, and a week after he was dead. Uh, so that was what was done to get him out of the way, and then of course Latosa now took over, right? So but as at the time that Latosa came, he enlisted into Ogumola, and he distinguished himself in many campaigns. He grew through the ranks and became a senior general in Ogumola's private army. So during the Ibadan Ijaye War, when Ibadan had to step in because okay, there was there were two military bases initially. There was one at Ibadan and there was one at Ijayi. Ibadan was tasked with fighting back the Fulanis who were invading from Ilorin, and Ijayi was tasked with fighting back the Dahomians who were invading from from um from Dahomey.
From
Sorry,
Egbado. Egbado
yeah,
side.
they were invading through Egbado regions into Egbaland, and their leader at that time was King Gizo, the same Gizo that American movies are romanticizing today. You know, they had to station a military base there at Ijaye to fight them off. So, but Kurumi became a little bit rebellious towards Oyo, especially after the death of Alaafin Atiba and a successor of his. So the argument at the new Oyo is Agodoja, Agodoyo. So the place used to be called Ago, and now this man cleverly brought the capital away from Katunga, claimed that it was because of the wars going on, and then brought it to his own private place at Ago. Ago was his own military base. And the reason why he did that was because he wanted his descendants to now be the ones ruling. So normally the Aremo is supposed to die with the king, but now the argument is that Ago is our base. So we're not going to allow any other ruling family to rule from Ako. So that caused a lot of tension. Kurumi was like, no, 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 tradition must go on. You can now turn your monarchy into a direct one where you and your descendants will be the only one ruling, and their Remo must die with the king. So they were trying to turn into what was happening at Benin. You know that Benin had a long line of succession since 1140 or 11 no 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 1240. That was when Oromio first showed up, and all the people that have ruled from Benin to the current Oba of Benin are direct bloodlines of Oromio. It's never shifted. So direct firstborn. Sometimes when there's a skirmish, maybe the second, but it's always coming from one family. But yeah, it wasn't like that. There were different ruling families, although they were also from the same royal house, but they've spread out. So they used to rotate it among them. But Kurumi was saying, no, 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 that's not going to happen. We have to go back to the days of old, and that led to a kind of war between Ibadan and Ijaye. And so Ibadan had to step in because Kurumi was getting very reckless. So he was one of the generals. That's Latosa was one of the generals that led the major campaigns to capture many cities that were under Ijaye at that time. So he led the campaign for the conquest of Irawo. Irawo was a major city in Ekonsi province of Oyo. Irawo used to be a Bariba city, kind of, but was handed over to Oyo in a kind of bilateral agreement after the return of Oyo people from exile in Bariba land. So you remember that there was a time during the reign of Alafin Onigbogi when Oyo people were chased into exile by Nupe people. So while they were there, they and the Bariba people were going on different campaigns. So, but when Oyo people now returned, the Baribas and Oyo people now decided to now divide the cities under their care. So some went to the Baribas and some went to the Oyo people. Bariba was one of those cities because even before Oyo people moved back to Katunga, Bari Irawo was populated by Oyo people, so it was handed over to them. Another city like that was Ogbomosho. So now, but it's but now okay, I'm always not sure what to say, and when this text comes, but so well Latosa led campaigns on Iseyin. So in these campaigns, like kind of is the campaign at Iseyin that kind of made him a great war hero in across Yoruba countries because he distinguished himself very much in that battle. So at that time in Ibadan, leadership is achieved by being the bravest. If you are the bravest of the generals, you are the one that now ascribe the river. You are the one that they sing your victories most. And Latosa was one of those that were fighting the hardest battles. He was in the hottest battles, and he was kind of having the hardest victories. So of course, that distinguished him over and above the other generals at that time, even though many of them were great ones. So now, unlike his predecessors, Latosa wanted to deviate from the way they placed things, and he wanted to start ruling by decrees, and he made little consultations before making laws. And the reason for this, so I would say Latosa was a dictator, and the reason was for this was because he embraced Islam. So when he embraced Islam, he tried to operate like the emirs or the caliphs. An emir and a caliph. These people believe themselves that their laws are divine, that only God speaks to them, and whatever they say, they are carrying the mind of God. So they don't like people to kind of question their authorities. They're like autocratic rulers, and that's what you see happening in the north. So people don't question their leaders per se. So those leaders get away with doing a lot of terrible things while the people remain impoverished, but they can never kind of question whatever their leaders are doing wrong. So this was what Latosa was trying to bring to Ibadan. And the Ibadan warriors are like, oh, no, 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 no. That's not the foundation. The founder of modern Ibadan was Oluyedun. Oluyedun was the son of Afonja, and we'll go into his story. And when he set things up, there was some pattern he set up, and Latosa was deviating seriously from that. And the guys were like, no, 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 we don't want that. So his style started to it started to kind of alienate him from a lot of the warlords at Ibadan, and it also got him many enemies across Yoruba country. So let me talk a few about some of the enemies that he got to himself. And the number one enemy that went after him at that time was Madame Efusheton, Efusheton Aniwura. Efusheton Aniwura was an Egba woman, but she settled down at Ibadan, and she became, and Egba women, they're one of the most industrious Yoruba women. They're very energetic, and they're very successful. So if you look at Madame Tinubu, you see that she's also Egba. Fela Kuti's mom, that was an Egba woman. Even if you look at the richest black woman in the world today, she's an Egba woman. So Egba has always been like an industrial for women. It's always been an industrial base. So when she came, Efushetu Anuwura came to Ibadan, she distinguished herself and became one of the most successful women. And of course, she was made an Yellow Day. And she also was a warlord, like the other men. She also has her own standing army. And her general then, his name was Ogidon. So Ogidon actually went with Latosa in all his campaigns in Ekiti. But one thing about Madame Efusheton was that she was the one actually financing those wars. Those wars were very expensive, super expensive. So she was the one kind of um paying for it. Now when Latosa became very aggressive, she withdrew her financial support. And with withdrawal of her financial support, the Egba people also withdrew because she was buying weapons directly from Egba land. At that time, Awujale Afidipote had done a blockade and said they shouldn't sell guns to Ibadan. So she would go to Egba land, and you know that Egba was also open to the coast, and they were dealing with the white people. So she would go there and buy weapons and bring it. So when she decided that she was going to cut all ties from Latosa, that put him in a panic because he can't continue his campaigns without Are Latosa, without Madam Efrishiton. So he arranged for someone else to take over his estate and orchestrated her assassination in 1874. That was what led to her death. All the other stories of her being a tyrant and all that is just it's just propaganda. But that was the real that was the real reason. And then there was another person he went after. That was Cherokee Lawonyi. The Cherokee title was the second most powerful title in Ibadan at that time. He was a Cherokee Lawonyi was a powerful political figure at Ibadan, and very much like a Bale or Kakanfo. A Cherokee has powers to nominate and grant military titles. You know how when the Kakanfo gets into power, he will elect his Otun, elect his OC, and then have his own quarters. That's how the Cherokee was as well. And so the Cherokee too also is a Baba Isale. A Baba Isale is like a prefect, and I will break how that works. So a prefect is in charge of certain parts of the empires. So he was also, you know how they did the Roman structures at that time. That was also how it was. So he too was in charge of a section of a part of Ibadan Empire at that time. So he too was against Latosa's tyranny, and Latosa removed him from power and then banned him from going to war. Used an excuse that he wasn't. He went to a certain war and lost a few very great generals, and then Latosa, looking for an excuse to get rid of him anyway, now said, "Oh, I don't want you to go to wars again." And then he removed him from that title. And then he now decided he went on and became a farmer for the rest of his life. And then there was also another general. His name was Ayejenku Foko. Is it Foko or Foko? Ayejenku Foko. I need someone to help me with names. If you're very good with all these names, just come on stage and correct me so that I can know them for future sessions. But his name was Ayejenku Foko. So I don't know if it's Foko or Foko or Foko. I'm not sure how it's called. But Ayejenku had
My bad. I was driving this IAGM Foko. So,
no, it's
yeah,
Ayejenku
Echo is Echo like
Foko
IAG Foko,
Foko
yeah.
Foeko.
Yeah.
Oh my
Yeah,
God,
Foko. IAGM Foko.
Foko. Ah. So Ayejenku had the same legends as that old Elekpo. Maybe we'll talk about Elekpo one day. Elekpo was the one who launched the campaigns into Iwo, and Iwo is a troublesome city. It is not today that Iwo started all this wahala. Like Iwo has always been a very troublesome city. So Iwo was the first Islamic base in the interiors of Yoruba land at that time, and they had a very strong spiritual alliance with the Ilorin people as way back as the 1800s at that time. And there was a prince at a warden. His name was Mohemi,
I have
and it
to
was
interject, Baba Bunka. I think it's not Foko, it's Foko.
Foko. Oh,
Foko.
oh,
Ijagboro, hold on. Ijagboro, Ayejenku Foko. Oko like a stone, I guess. Not Foko.
No,
Kò ní ọmọ nídìí.
well, could
Ọkọ
no
with
man, no money didn't.
kò lọ́mọ nídìí. That is Foko.
I should have checked my book so I could know and then material. Maybe,
Ijagboro,
but
Ayejenku Foko. Yeah.
don't carry it. Your speaker is not good. Mm-hmm. Go out and come. Yeah, go out and come back.
No, we cannot hear you loudly.
Jesus. Okay, Akara, please help me
Maybe
step
you
in.
should go out and come back in.
Okay.
Baba Kara, music, please.
So you still can't hear me?
Unfortunately, not.
Okay. I'm going to reboot in a minute.
Okay.
Just give me a minute. Yeah. Akara, please help me step in.
Baba Kara Ogun, are you there?
People and told them, you see, at that time,
Tó wá pé gbọ̀n wà nínú máa ti yẹ̀ wé bí
Ìjàgboro
broadcast.
Ayéjẹ̀nkú Foko.
people and told them, you see, at that time, the invasion from Ilorin, they were concentrating on Oyo soldiers, right? And the Oyo warriors, they were very difficult people to conquer because the moment you kill them, they'll go and remobilize themselves somewhere else. You kill them, they'll remobilize themselves again. So it was Moemi, a prince from Iwo, that had a pact with the Ilorin people and told them that if you want to destroy Yoruba land, it is not Oyo that you should be facing, it is Ife. So he gave them all the blueprint of Ife, how they can destroy Ife as a spiritual base, and how they can now replace it with political Islam. So the same thing they did at in the Hausa land when they destroyed Daura. So he was the one who gave them all that blueprint. The same way Dekun was the one who went to Gizo and taught him how to invade Yoruba land from Egbado lands into Abeokuta and all that region. And so, of course, Ibadan has always had a warm mind that they were going to revenge on what Mohemi did one day. And this man, Elepo, was the one who went there then and did some justice on what happened. The people had a lot. Oluyale was the leader of Ibadan at that time, but there was a lot of fear for Elepo. So Latosa was also like a dreaded guy like that. Now, Foko was a prefect, like I said, and in Yoruba we call them Babakekere. So Baba Kekere is a prefect in charge of when they have all the empires, all the cities under Ibadan, they divided it among the warlords. So the senior warlords, and they will say, okay, this section of the empire, you're in charge of peace in that area. You're in charge of order. So he's the one that would place Ageles there. He was the one that will make sure that succession of kings happened very well. He will make sure that the revenues came directly to Ibadan well and things like that. So he was a very powerful guy. He was a Baba Kekere, and like so we'll call it more like a loosely we'll call it like a provincial governor, you know. And Kábíyèsí is on stage. Kábíyèsí Ajuba o. Tẹ́ bá fẹ́ gòkè wá bá a sọ̀rọ̀, free anytime o. So yeah, we must always acknowledge our Oriade anytime we see them because it's part of respect in our culture, you know. So Latosa. So okay. So, okay, yes, sir. Thanks, sir. So he was in charge of that part. So when Latosa became very autocratic and started to kind of decide that he's going to run Ibadan like a one-man army, and he was not going to be consulting the people anymore, Foko was one of the people that rebelled against him. Now, Latosa orchestrated an invasion into his estate at Ibadan, and they disbanded his soldiers, and then they burnt down his estate. So when I say estate, Foko had a land that was as big as a city. He had a lot of people that were under his estate. Those guys did not just have houses. They will have a big compound, and there will be hundreds and hundreds of people, different families, different structures, generals, soldiers, all of them living under them. He went into that area and disbanded all of them. So Foko committed suicide in 1877 after he saw that Latosa had disgraced him and had kind of turned him into it was more like a great man falling down. So, and our fathers, they believed that Ikuya Jesin law. Our fathers were not kind of into all this fear of hell and fear of these things. They would rather die than to live and stay in shame or all those nonsense. All those, I don't even know say nonsense, but all those stuff. So another warlord that he went after was another guy called Cherokee Yapo. Cherokee, he was a very powerful warlord, and he had the second largest soldiers at Ibadan. He inherited them from his fathers. So Latos openly attacked his compound also in 1877 and disbanded it the same way he did with Foko, and he too also committed suicide. So matters reached its peak when Latosa started to invade Egba lands. Many kingdoms in Yoruba land now started to get uncomfortable, like, this man is getting very reckless. So they decided to resent Ibadan. And so Latosa made Ibadan an unpopular place. He messed up the foreign relations and all the good things that were happening. At that point, rebellion against Ibadan was now reaching its peaks. So the warlords became very uncomfortable and they planned a lot of series of coups to get rid of Arela Tosa. He was the most unpopular leader from Ibadan at that time. Now, the second most important character that I want to talk about is when we're talking about Ekitiparapa War is Fabumi of Okemesi. Now, Fabumi was a prince from the royal house of Imesigo, more popularly called Okemesi. Now the little bragging, the dialect of Okemesi is one of the sweetest in Yoruba land. That's my personal opinion. I like there's a particular guy, there's a Yoruba actor that acts. They call him Messi. When you hear him talk of the Okemesi accent, is very interesting, very very lovely. Okay, that's a personal opinion, Sha. But he grew up at a time when the dominant Yoruba kingdoms in the interiors, they always try to bully the lesser kingdoms. So one of the kingdoms in the interiors that was bullying is the kingdom of our Royal Majesty, our Oba Akinyele, Oba Bayo Akinyele. Ijesha people started to kind of get very very tough on their neighbors, and one of the major kingdoms that they were trying to get rid, so they were leading campaigns against was Igbajo and those areas, and we're going to get to that. So in the 1860s, Ijesha invaded Okemesi and they sacked it. So when that happened, Fabumi and his parents they migrated to Ilaorogun. So it was here that he grew up to be like a young adult, and he set up a kind of fabrics and embroidery business, which is one of the big businesses of that times. So it was here that his father died, and then his father died at Ilaorogun. So he inherited all of his father's estates, his father's slaves, his father's lands. So Ibadan would eventually, and this was during the reign of Balogun Ibikunle, Ibadan would no, not Ibikunle, the guy that came after him. I think it was Ogunmola. So they restored Ekiti, and the natives now returned home, including Fabumi. Now, Fabumi would later make the famous journey to Ibadan, which was done by many of the Yoruba youths in search of fame and fortune. So you see, Ibadan was a powerful military base at the time. And it was founded at a time when many of the warlords fled from their base up north and needed a new base. So Ibadan attracted the warlords. And one of the reasons why the warlords chose Ibadan was because Ibadan was a natural fortress. Ibadan had a lot of mountains around it. So you see a lot of places they call okay this, okay that in Ibadan. So they were very so when the warriors when they first arrived, they placed themselves in garrisons across all these mountains. So those mountains were at the borders of Ibadan. So each of those warriors chose those mountains, and then they placed their garrisons there. And then from there, they spread across to build what you call they built kind of private estates, and then it migrated and it became what you see today called Ibadan. And it was so large that Ibadan, you know that Ibadan today is the third biggest city in Africa. So that's
Largest
how much.
city.
Yeah, third largest. So that's how it was the warlords that planned it that way, and they stretched out from each of the mountains across the borders. So there was okay Foko. for example. So it was named after the Ayejenku Foko that I just spoke about. So that was where his base was. He was at that mountain at Okefoko, and of course until Latos invaded and destroyed it. Then there was Okeado. It was named after a warlord that they used to call Ado at that time. Ado he used to do a lot of charms for those soldiers, and he was a medicine man. And he used to fight side by side with Foko. And then there was also I believe Okebola. It was named after also a warrior known as Bola, and Okebola was also the base of Aleshinloye, one of those legendary guys. I believe Aleshin Lawyer too would eventually become a ballet, if I'm correct. Then there was Okeare. This was the base. Actually, Are means Are or Nokakanfo. This was the base of Latosa himself. So he settled down in one of those mountains. So they used to call it Okelatosa, Okeare Latosa. But it was shortened to Okeare. And Okeare is still very popular in Okeare is still very popular in Ibadan till today. I think there's even is it a media house or something, right? In Okeare, if I remember. I used to hear one of these media houses were there. Then we have Okemako, right? This was the base of great warriors like Oluyole. Oluyole lived in that area. Ogbori Efon lived in that area. Basharon Ogumola, Efushetan Aniwura, they all were at the Okemako area. And the biggest market in Ibadan was in that area, and that was Mojaiba. So they were the dominant guys in those markets, and Efushetan was one of the managers of that market at that time. So they were all around that Mako area. So, fortress cities have always been kind of great military bases, and some fortress cities in history is not only peculiar to Ibadan. If you look at Jerusalem, it's surrounded by mountains. Greece, surrounded by mountains. Rome, surrounded by mountains. Babylon. So you can see that each of these places too ended up building very big, powerful empires. It had to do with the terrain. When you have a terrain that is naturally fortressed, it helps you to be able to mobilize yourself and resist your enemies. It's the same thing that happened at Abeokuta. When I don't remember his name skipped my head now. He was the one who moved Egba people from Ibadan and moved them and settled them at Abeokuta. And so you'll see that not Lisabi, the other guy, his name, there's just so much names, but you'll see that one of the things that made it hard to penetrate into Abeokuta was the rock.
He was an hunter as well. He was an
Yes,
hunter.
yeah, I've forgotten. It's strange how his name skipped my head.
It was
But
an hunter. It was the one that found the that we are today, the Abeokuta of today before you actually Lishabina took the people over there.
yes, no. Lisa B's own was way back. I'm talking of
He,
the other guy
wait, let
from
me
Ibadan.
actually look
He
his
was
name up.
he was
I
with
will
them
get
at
back to you.
Ibadan. And then during the war with Maye and all of them, he now decided I was going to carry his people, and then they will move to Abeokuta. One of the things that made it hard to conquer them was because it was naturally fortressed by rocks. So okay, well, that's a slight deviation. Let's go back to the story, the session. So while he was at Ibadan, right, he enlisted in the army of Akintola, and I'm talking of Fabumi of Okemesi now. And Akintola was the son of Balogun Ibikunle, and as we said, Balogun Ibikunle was one of the greatest warriors of that time. So after his military training at Ibadan, he went back to Okemesi, and with the wealth he inherited from his father, he also started a militia group. And the militia group was called Mayehun. Mayehun. The Mayehun group were the people that propelled the Kiriji War. It started from them. And now the third person that we'll be talking about is the legendary and the most famous warrior in Ijesha land. And his name is Ogedengbe. So Ijesha people in those days were very ethnic conscious, and also they were a big warrior nation. So, but at Ogedengbe's time, Ijesha had lost many of its old glory. It has lost its independence. So you'll know that Ijesha were the only people that the Fulani people could not conquer. Even after Fulani people had invaded and conquered Oyo people, disbanded Oyo, killed Oluewu, chased them out of exile, all those stuff. They went after Ijesha people, and Ijesha people massacred them in the thousands. That's the Pole War, And there was also a very powerful Oyo warrior king at that time. I think his name is either Ajagbo or Esinlokun, one of the two. And they invaded Ijesha at that time, and Ijesha soldiers actually massacred them to a point where it took a couple of years for them to be able to build an army back at Oyo in those times. So you can see how kind of powerful Ijesha was. So they all had that past glory, but as at the time of Ogedengbe, they had been conquered. Ibadan had subdued them. Ibadan was the Afobaje of Ijesha land, and that kind of affected their self-esteem in a way. Now, Ogedengbe single-handedly fought to restore the glory of Ijesha land, and in ancient history of Ibadan supremacy, Ijesha remained the only kingdom in the interiors that Ibadan was not able to defeat because of Ogedengbe. Every war that Ibadan, every campaign that Ibadan went for, they came back victorious. The first time they would go out and not come back victorious was when they confronted Okidengbe. And of course, we'll talk about that too. Now, he came from very humble beginnings, and he was born in a place called Atorin. I don't know if I call that right. Is it Atorin? Atorin or Atorin? One of the two. Uh, oh, thank you. The person I'm trying to remember is Shodeke. Thank you, Mr. Remy.
No,
Uh,
no, 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 no. Bonka, Shodanke was not the first person to find the guy. It was an hunter. So the hunter now later let Shodanke now led them there. So there was an hunter that found Abeokuta before Shodanke.
No,
So
Shodeke was the one that turned it to a
it was the
military
one
base.
that led, yeah, it was one that led them
Yeah,
there. But there was an hunter that
yeah,
found that place first.
yeah.
So he
There was
went
an
back to
hunter
a,
from East
yeah.
that
So
was there, but that's not.
yeah. So there was
Yeah,
an hunter. So it was not Shodanke first. Let me.
yeah. But the person I was trying to remember actually was Shodeke, because Shodeke was the one who took the Egba people from Ibadan, settled them at Abeokuta, and then kind of transformed it to a very powerful military base. So as we were saying about Ogedengbe, he was born in is it Atorin or Atorin? I'm not sure how to call it, but it's a place close to Ifewara. And he was born in the 1830s, I believe 1832, either 1831 or 1832. So his father was a blacksmith, and he was skilled in making farm equipment and metal works used by warriors on the battlefield. So it was from his father's shop that he had a lot of the stories of the legendary of Oyo people, or the Ibadan warriors. And Ilesha was the biggest city in Ijesha land at that time, and it was the jewel of the kingdom. So Ogedengbe had this deep, passionate love for this city. It was a metropolitan city, and he's always loved it since the days of his youth. You know how all of us used to love Lagos. We when everybody wanted to go on holiday in Lagos at that time, and right now the jewel city is Abuja. So that's how Ilesha was to the people of Ijesha at that time. So Ogedengbe had this connection to it. So when he was young, he would visit Ilesha and tour the palace, walk about. There was a famous market then. I think it's called Atakumosa or something like that. Ijesha people, please.
Atekumosa.
Atakumosa.
Atekumosa. Yeah.
Atakumosa. Yeah. So it was one of the famous markets of that time. He would go in there, look at those markets and embrace it. So from a young age, he had that love for his ancestral home. So as he grew older, he also developed interest in a military career, and very much like Fabumi of Okemesi. The popular stories of the time was about the warriors of Ibadan. So that's the place where everybody loved to go. So at the time, Ibadan had frustrated Ijesha's attempts of being independent, and so Ijesha at some point wanted to fight with Ileife. And Ijesha actually invaded Oshogbo in the 1850s, and also played an active. They played a very big role in the Ijebu War, which was fought with Ibikunle. So Ibadan had to kind of put Ijesha in check because they saw them as a people that can also kind of go on an expansionist agenda. And they defeated Ijesha in this Ijebwere war. And then we'll go ahead to conquer many of the powerful cities of Ijesha, including I know they took Ilashe, they took Ibokun, they took Egure, they took Meteorological. So one thing that I noticed though is that both Ekiti and Ijesha, I think I don't know, they speak the same dialect. If you look at Okemesi and Ilesha area, it's like they have a lot in common. They speak the same language. They have the same. Okay, let me not start Wahala. But eventually, Ibadan people captured the capital and they forced it to surrender. So Idesha paid annual tributes to Ibadan. And from that point on, a prefect commonly known as Baba Kikiri, like I said earlier, was appointed in charge of Ijesha. Now, Ogedengbe set out to train in the art of war at Ibadan, and in a bid to understand how its warriors master the art of war to a point where they are kind of invincible. Ibadan warriors were super invincible. You can't conquer them in battles. They were really good. And even the British knew that. That's why they didn't fight them directly. They used their people to fight them. They couldn't directly fight. If they had directly fought Ibadan people and Ibadan ran to the Portuguese for help, it would have been bad. Or if when the British came, if all of Yoruba people were united and then Idesha, Ijebu people, Ekiti, Oyo, Ibadan people all decided that they wanted to fight. I don't see the British defeating us because our ancestors were very great in battle strategy. Before I go on, I have to acknowledge the KBC on stage. I don't know if you have something to say or I should go on.
No, go on, my brother. I just came to stay to support whatever you're saying concerning our people. God bless you.
Yes, sir. Okay. Yeah. Now, your levels are changed, so we have to give you the honor. To go, or else, àwọn alálẹ̀, wọ́n máa bínú sí wa. So,
Ó wà bọ̀ ní orí adé o. God àbí Elédùmarè.
yes,
Ẹ
sir.
ṣeun, ẹ ṣeun o, ẹ ṣeun.
Ẹ ṣeun Elédùmarè bless us.
Àṣẹ,
Ẹ ṣeun bàbá wa.
àṣẹ.
Yes, sir. Okay. So going on, at Ibadan, he when Mogedengbe got to Ibadan, he too enlisted under the army of Basharu Ogumala, and the general in charge of Ogumala's army at that time was Baba Akiko. Is that Akiko or something? I don't. So, but he was Ogedengbe was a very charismatic man. So he was really loved at Ibadan. He was very loved. The junior soldiers and all of them, they loved him. And one of his very good friends actually was Arela Tosa. At that time, Latosa too was a general in Ogumala's army. So Ibadan at that time was very famous for street fightings. They used to engage in street. In fact, it's in part of Ibadan's Oriki. Something Ijaigboro. Anybody that knows that Oriki, please can Ibadan.
Ìjàgboro làwọn Ìbàdàn.
Something, then Ijaigboro kind of stuff. It's a part of their Oriki. So they would just kind of go and then engage in mock battles. They used to have knives and things like that. So, they Ogedengbe kind of trained in that environment. They trained him how to cock weapons, how to lay an ambush, how to study battle terrains, how to watch the enemy and things like that. And he became super good at it. But the disadvantage to Ibadan is that it also helped him to know Ibadan's weakness. And he would use that to his advantage in some future engagements. So Ibadan, so by the mid 1850s, he had now trained to be a soldier. He had passed. He has gotten his certificate. Our own Yoruba land NDA, which was at Ibadan. He had trained and he had passed. So he started to join them for campaigns. And of course, he went with them to the Ekiti regions. And after his trainings, he moved back to Elisha. And then he enlisted in the king's army under the command of the General Atijesha, known as Okejalaga. Okejalaga. Kabiyesi Ejo, correct me. Is it Okejalaga? Okejala, that general, your general at that time. But me, Okay, anyway, so he joined with him in the campaigns at F1. And at the time, Ibadan was in a Ibadan was in a campaign with Ijaye. So this was the time that Arekunrunmi of Ijaye went rogue due to secession battles at Oyo, and Ijesha saw this as now as an opportunity to free themselves from Ibadan. So while Ibadan was busy fighting war with Ijaye, Ijesha was now trying to break away from Ibadan. So tensions between Ogede, Be, and Ibadan now did not start at kIRIJI. Ogedengbe has always fought Ibadan even before kIRIJI War. And one of the reasons was because, like I said, he grew up having this love and passion for Yoruba land. The way many of us kind of had this love and passion for Yoruba land, to a point where even though we're abroad, our heart is still kind of at home and everything that happens there still pains us. That's how it was with Sha. He had this love for Ilesha, the capital of Ijesha. It's to a point of near obsession, if you'd ask me, you know. So, but now there was a campaign at Igbajo. Now, a lot of Ijesha people, they live at Igbajo, and Ijesha influence was big on the city. So normally before all the issue at Ayonyo, Igbajo was like a kind of subordinate city to Ijesha. But now they fell under when they saw that Ibadan was a bigger warrior. They broke ties from Ijesha and now kind of went to Ibadan. But Ijesha people were like, no, 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 our people live here and we've had a lot of influence here, so we want Igbajo back. So that led to a full-scale war between Ijesha and Ibadan in 1867. So Ibadan, now when Ibadan was marching out to fight them, they now told Ogwedengbe to please come and join them in the campaigns. So because he's their friend, so Latos and all of them are like, Ogwedengbe, come and join us in this fight for Ibadan, because the way Ibadan was designed as a cosmopolitan city. So in Ibadan, they didn't make it look like it's an Oyo Ibadan thing. Ibadan was for all Yoruba people. So if you come from any part of Yoruba land, and in fact, the only person from Oyo that was ever a leader at Ibadan was Basharu Oluyole. Every other leader of Ibadan did not come from Oyo. So if you came to Ibadan and you excelled and you are from a Yoruba background, you can qualify to rule Ibadan. So when they went there, they told Ogedengbe to join them in that campaign against his people, and of course he obliged. But then when the war was going on, Ogedengbe started to see how Ibadan was kind of gunning down his people, killing his people, and it was a terrible massacre going on. That kind of ethnic consciousness rose in him, and that guilt, like, how can I be joining Ibadan to be killing my people? Right there on the battlefield, he switched sides and now started to shoot at Ibadan warriors. He started to kill his friends and all that. And then when many of his followers saw that, they too now joined and started to shoot, and that kind of messed up the battle. But unfortunately for Gedenkwe, Ibadan won that battle. So immediately after the war, they grabbed Ogedengbe and brought him to Ibadan and handed him over to Ogumola. And Ogumola was really upset because this was a guy that he trained in his own private military. This was a guy that became great at Ibadan before he went back home. And for him to do that, he decided that he was going to have him killed in front of Ogun, in the shrine of Ogun. They were to kill him. But it's like I said, Ogedengbe was very popular at Ibadan. So a lot of his friends begged on his behalf and said, please, can you spare him? And especially Latosa. Latosa begged, and unfortunately, if only Latosa knew that Ogedengbe that he's begging for will be his greatest nightmare just a few years to come when he himself became ballet, I'm sure he would have thought of it otherwise. But they begged, and then Ogumola spared his life. But he now did something. He said they should give him Ibadan tribal marks. And for a guy that had the Ijesha pride in him, to be going around with a passport of Ibadan. That was a big. They saw that as a big lifetime humiliation, and there's no plastic surgery or anything that can change that. So that was the punishment he got, and of course he left Ibadan and went back to his base at Ijesha. Went back to Ijesha. And now he too now built his own private militia. And his private army was called the Ipaye. 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 I don't know how to call this name, so please help me out if I call it wrong. But they were called
Ipayi, Ipayi, Ipayi.
Ipaye. Ipaye. Thank you, sir. So they were called Ipaye, and these soldiers got a lot of support from. You see, these Ipaye soldiers, right? They were one of the best soldiers in when it comes to guerrilla attacks. They were good at underground labor. So Ogedengbe was very good at jungle war. He knew how to fight in the forest. In fact, he can look at footmarks. He can look at the direction of the wind. He can look at he knows how to track in the jungles. He was really good. So it was so you know that this the Saros financed him a lot. The Saros, and they were very rich people. They were based in Lagos at that time. And when the British was going to go on a campaign, there was the man that sold Nigeria, Sir Goldie. When he went on campaign against Nupe people during the reign of an emir in Bida known as Emir Masaba. Ijesha people were part of the people he recruited in his war at that time. So I believe that was in the 1870s or 1880s. But Masaba was the grandson or great grandson of Malam Dendo. So that was how much the army he built became very powerful. Now there was a secession. There was an Owa at Owa of Ijesha known as Agunlejika. So Agunlejika died in 1869 or 1870, I believe. Now, two princes were fighting.
Agunlejika, Agunlejika.
Agunlejika. I thought it was Agunlejika, someone that is tall on the shoulders.
No, Agunlejika. Ìjẹ̀ṣà náà fi
Agun
máa ń pè é. Agun,
Agunlejik. What does
ọmọ
Agunlejika mean, sir?
Agunlejika pé ẹni tí èjìká ṣódà ẹ̀ tó
Shoulder is beautiful.
ṣó ti yé ó ti yé.
Agunlejika. Even in Lagos, you have the street in Ijesha.
Okay. So,
Agunlejika. Yeah, it's
if
like kind of has a beautiful shoulder.
if something is Agun, it means it's beautiful.
Yeah. Ogun kinkan gunrege. Agunlejika.
Oh.
Agun téjìká ẹ̀ level tó beautiful ṣá.
But how can someone be beautiful in Ejika? Kò yé mi ní ẹjọ́, mò ń kọ́ Yorùbá
Yeah,
ni.
is that Agunlejika? It is it. You have it in Lekogon. You have it in Ijesha. You have that place in Ijesha. In Lagos, you have Agunlejika in Ijesha.
Oh, okay.
That's how Agunlejika, yeah.
Yeah. So that when Agunlejika died, two people were vying for the throne. One was two princes, Oweweniye and Odigbadigba, Peloye Odigbadigba. Now, Ogedengbe liked Odigbadigba, and so he wanted him to succeed Agunlejika. So he sent to Ibadan and kind of started to mobilize for him among his friends. So his friends connected him to the Baba Kekere of the in charge of Ijesha, who is Balogun Ajobo or Ajobo. Balogun Ajobo
Àjọbọ,
Sha.
àjọbọ,
Ajobo
àjọbọ,
Balogun Ajobo.
balógun
Thank you, sir.
àjọbọ.
So he now sent him a lot of gifts, sent him money, sent him beads, sent him slaves, and said, "Oh, please, can you help me? Can you help us lobby for Odigbadigba to be the new Owa?" So now, Ajobo, instead of him to take all those things that Ogedengbe sent to him and to now kind of distribute it among the warlords at Ibadan to do that groundwork, he now he ate all that gift and did not do anything. So now, when that now became tensions, Ibadan people orchestrated an assassination for Odigbadigba and they killed him. Then Oweweniye now became king, and this really got Ogedengbe very upset. He was like, how can you just like that? It was like a slap on his face that Ibadan kind of did that, what you call like a Machiavelli move, to kind of now make their own pressing. So he started to become very difficult. He invaded Elisha and he halted all government activities. His soldiers, they held the whole capital to a standstill. So that was what led to the Ibadan invasion in 1872, led by Ajayi Ogbori Efon, one of the veteran warlords from Ibadan at that time. So when Ogedengbe saw that he was coming, Ogedengbe trained with them at Ibadan. He knows how they fight their wars. So he realized that he would not be able to capture them or confront them in an open field. Now he now rushed into the forest. He retreated to the forested parts of the kingdoms, and then he started to launch guerrilla attacks from a place known as Igbo Alawun. I don't, I don't remember. Well, Igbo. So it was the first time like a veteran warlord like Ogborie faced defeat. So no, I think it's Igbo. No, I'm not sure. But it was between Ikere and Akure, that thick forested region in that area. So he would go in there, and then from there he would launch guerrillas attacks. So it was this war that now distinguished him as a charismatic general. He rose to fame among Ekiti and Ondo people because Ogboriefon was a great Ogboriefon fought the Jalumi War. Ogboriefon was the one that invaded Ekiti and fought Fabumi. So that's not a pushover. He was part of the warriors that was from the days of Bashorun Moluyoli. So very skilled guy. So for Ogedengbe to have defeated him, Ogedengbe would launch guerrilla attacks, lay siege on him, shoot and kill his boys in the jungle, and then disappear. It was always surprise attack and then surprise disappear. So after a while, he faced defeat. When he went to Ibadan and was given an account of the war, he busted into tears. That was too much of a shame for a man like Ogboriefon, for Ogedengbe to have defeated him. But so it made him very famous. Everybody started to love and respect him. Ondo people embraced him. Ekiti people embraced him. Ijesha people loved him because that was the first time someone could easily defeat Ibadan people. Now, this I've given a preamble of the three major characters of this war. Now, before we now go into the what led to Kiriji War, I will open the floor for people who want to talk so that if we can engage. Ah, nobody has anything to say.
Bonka,
Yes.
Remy, thank you for this. I just want to point out something, right? So, Igbajo, Oshogbo, Ada, Ire, and Otayegbaju were all Ijesha towns. And after the fall of Oyo, as good Yoruba people,
Igbajo was not an Ijesha town.
hold on. The only thing Igbajo was that Igbajo did not acknowledge the suzerainty of Ilesha. So they didn't acknowledge Owa as its lord, but they were Ijesha towns. What happened was that they took Oyo people in.
Until tomorrow, the
Yeah,
king is Owagbajo now.
exactly. They took Oyo people in, right? And Oyo people flooded those towns. And overnight, the character of those towns changed from Ijesha to Oyo Yoruba people. And it was these people that, aligned with their brothers who are the Oyo towns of Ikirun and the Ragbiji who are their neighbors to go and submit themselves to Ibadan. So when Ilesha was fighting Igbajo, it wasn't expansionist. It was actually it's rightful for Ilesha. It was all those towns used to be Ilesha. Now they are Oyo Yoruba. because of those migration,
But
but they were all Ilesha towns.
Elisha also attacked Oshogbo. They also attacked
Oshogbo
Okemesi.
was an Ilesha town. Was an Ilesha town.
Oshogbo was an Elisha
Yeah,
town. He
Igbajo.
created Oshogbo.
Exactly.
The
Igbajo.
first king of Oshogbo was the son of our king from
Exactly.
Ijesha land.
Yeah. Igbajo, Oshogbo, Ada, Ire, and Otan Igbaju. Otan Igbaju used to be called Otan Koto. Right? So they were all Ilesha towns. The Oyo people changed it overnight, and that was why they look like Oyo towns today. And the Oyo people, wherever they are aligned with Ibadan. So even in Ekiti towns that they were, most of the Ekiti, and I know you probably talk about most of the Ekiti towns that did not join in the Kiriji War, they had substantial Oyo immigrants who, one way or the other, they had as fifth column for Ibadan, either to demoralize the people or to, just tell them submit to Ibadan and all of those things. So that was what happened. So Elisha was actually fighting for what is rightly its own. The expansionist war that Elisha fought was against Efalaye, because Efalaye was Ekiti, as not under Elisha, right? So yeah, so Elisha was the regional power there, and their neighbors, they are afraid of them. And that was, I think, that was what made Ibadan to succeed initially, because the Ijeshas and the Ekitis did not trust each other because of Elisha's expansionist ambition. So I just want to chip that in. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Thank you. This is going to be a preamble to what started Kiriji War. There's going to be a part two of the session, and I hope you'll be able to join with it, Mr. Remy, because I know you have a lot of deep knowledge of this too. But you're always running from me. I don't know why. Maybe because I'm not into politics. Well, 'cause you are yeah. Now, um, let's talk about the Kiriji War. And because now we've kind of discussed about the three major characters that shaped the war, so we're just going to talk about the foundation, the events that led to the war, and then in the next session we'll now break down the war, go how it happened. But now, prior to the Ibadan's dominance in the interiors of Yoruba country, Benin had a lot of influence in Ijesha region. In fact, one of the old Ijesha kings, he when his people turned against him, he ran into exile in Benin and ran to the Oba of Benin to help him to get his mandate back. And he was Owa, I believe. I don't know how to call his name. I think it's Atakun or Atakumasa.
Atakumosa.
Atakumasa. Yeah. So there was a time his
Yeah.
people revolted against him, and he ran to Benin, and the Oba of Benin had him installed.
No,
So that was
no,
how
it's
big
not his people. The former king, the king before Atakumosa, brought the capital to Ilesha. So after he brought the capital to Ilesha, he had to make a lot of warlords commander of. That's why we still have many chiefs that are powerful today. So when the king died, the next king was not supported fully because of this warlord fee that they have power. We have some chiefs in Elisha that are very, very powerful, and they are equally to king today. So when the new king, which is Atakumosa, when he came in, my forefather, Fashetire, was a great herbalist then, and he was the one doing this ifa for the king that died. So when the king Atakumosa come to become king, many of these powerful chiefs, they are not regarding him as kings. They are within their own power too and all that. So they make the rule ungovernable for him. And eventually, it was only my forefather, Fashetire, that was among all the cabinet. It was only my forefather Fashetire that was behind Owata Kumosa. So Wala broke out eventually, and they had to fight war. That is where my home kingdom come to be, because it was only my forefather that was behind the king, and due to his magical power, spiritual power, the center of my town used to call Itaishu, where the war took place. So my forefather defeated those chiefs. They were warlord. My forefather defeated them. So that area which the war was fought was given to my forefather. So they refused to obey him until that war, until the war happened between them and those chiefs were defeated. So that was when Atakumosa had a great reign. So that's it.
Yes, but he ran to Benin, and the Oba of Benin helped
Yeah,
him to
yeah,
get
he ran
his
to
get the throne.
he seek
Yes.
power, he seek because you know when you have like 50, 40 chiefs and none of them are supporting you. So he has relationship, not that he ran to Benin, he has relationship with Benin Kingdom, the king in Benin at that particular time, because that Benin king was raised in Ilesha before he went back to Benin to become king. So when he had
Oh
this
wow.
problem, yeah, when he had this problem, he had to consult him because he helped the Benin King when the Benin King was growing up. So he had to consult him for help. But eventually, there was nothing the Oba of Benin could do, because this is internal fight, not a fight with external bodies. So they had to go to Ita issue. They picked the day of fight, and they went to Ita issue. And my forefather, Fashetire, performed lot of magic and lot of power at that moment. And all of them were defeated. And Atakumosa was restored fully and all that. So he rewarded my forefather. Uh, that is why they call my community Ilukosi, ìlú tí kò ń padà lẹ́yìn èèyàn, ìlú tí ò ń kúrò lẹ́yìn èèyàn. So that's how it is. It's not about the main people. It is about the chiefs, the powerful chiefs that don't want his reign to be successful.
Interesting. Wow. Wow. Oh, okay. I mean, that's good to have that preambles. But yes, so but I know that Benin did have a lot of influence in Ekiti, Ondo, but I believe Benin too had a lot of influence in Ijesha regions. But that's my conclusion from my research. But I mean, there's no doubt that in the 1800s, the power of the Benin Kingdom had started to wane, and it got bad during the ascension of Oba von Ramwen, because there was a lot of internal civil unrest arising based on his ascension to power. So Benin lost a lot of its military might around that time. But the new military base that rose in that region became Ibadan, and Ibadan controlled major cities in Ekiti and Ijesha regions. And they now placed Ajeles in these regions, and these Ajeles were sort of not the best, especially with Latosa not being so strict in them and behaving themselves. So they started to do a lot of wrong things. The Babake Keres and all the Babake Keres that were good in managing the estate, Latos had already chased them out. Those were the guys that I was talking about earlier in his ascension to the reign, and all the people that could stop him from being tyrannical. He had kind of gotten rid of them. So in those places, they became super tyrannical. One of the few regions in the interiors that Ibadan did not annex into a tributary status was Ile-Ife. Most of the places in the interiors were under Ibadan. It was only probably Ijebu the coastal part, and Ife, that Ibadan did not annex at that time. So, but it although I wouldn't say that Ibadan did not have a lot of influence over Ife, because they were the Afobajers of Ife. They were the ones that determined who ruled at Ife or not, especially through their proxy cousins at Modakeke. That's one of the reasons that tensions happened at that place, because they felt like Modakeke people, they were living with them at Ife, but with everything that happened, they were always on the side of Ibadan and Oyo. So so you see that in 1878, I think the Oni, Oni died. I think Degbin Sokin, he died, and then Ibadan now were the ones that imposed Ayikiti on Ife people, because he was a warrior, and he had joined them in past campaigns, so they felt like he would be their friend. So that's how powerful they were, and I believe it was Arelatos that actually imposed him on that throne. So you see, the tensions. These Ajalas were also very tyrannical in the Ekiti regions, and Ekiti was the place that suffered the most in this time. They really suffered. So
She likes me on a fresh bush me to Say what I own. Yeah, yeah. Make you what I own. Say what I own.
ayé ti wá dáadé báyìí o. Ṣé àwọn àgbà bọ̀ wọ́n ní ibi bá kúrò nínú iṣẹ́ ti ṣe èyí ló wà jọ àjọjú tèyí ni. Àkànní Akànjí fan pèsè àwọn èrè oko fún jíjẹ ní ìrọ̀rùn láìsí àbàwọ́n kan àti ìnira rárá. Àwọn èrè oko bíi àgbàdo, ẹ̀gẹ́, iṣu, ewébẹ̀ àti àwọn èso lóríṣiríṣi, ẹran ìgbẹ́, ẹja odò, ìgbín àti bẹ́ẹ̀ bẹ́ẹ̀ lọ. A tún ta àwọn ohun jíjẹ fún àwọn oníbàárà wa tí wọn kò bá lówó lọ́wọ́ lásìkò àti ra oúnjẹ lọ́dọ̀ wa, ṣùgbọ́n tí wọ́n sì ṣe ìlérí pé wọn yóò san owó náà padà kété tí wọ́n bá ti rí owó náà níparí oṣù. Pápánbárì rẹ̀ ni wípé a tún lè kó èyíkéyìí nínú àwọn èrè oko lọ káàkiri àgbáyé. Ẹ̀yin ṣáà ti kàn sí wa lórí ẹ̀rọ ìbánisọ̀rọ̀ Àkànní Akànjí fan 0034564577 àti 09077901303. Àkànní Akànjí fans, àwa fún yín lọ́jọ́kọ́jọ́.
past campaigns, so they felt like he would be their friend. So that's how powerful they were, and I believe it was Arelatos that actually imposed him on that throne. So you see, the tensions. These Ajalas were also very tyrannical in the Ekiti regions, and Ekiti was the place that suffered the most in this time. They really suffered. So it could be turned it could be turned as it originated from what I would call like a clash of ego. It was a clash of ego that occurred between Ekiti and Ibadan people. So they were always coming in, disturbing them. Like if Ekiti people were having parties or they had a gathering, they would come there and they would come and cause trouble and stuff like that. They were not so nice to the women, especially the beautiful women. So the resentment against them was strong, and they nursed a strong animosity against these Ajeles. But they, however, could not do anything, as no one wanted the problem of Ibadan. In Ibadan were not forgiving. They were not forgiving people. If you messed with them, they will come for you. So this was the situation during the reign of when Fabumi, who was a prince from a ruling house of Fasomi, um, came to live at Ibadan. So Fabumi, or initially, he liked Ibadan people. Same with Ogedengbe. But he was also a proud Ekiti man, and we'll talk a little bit about the personality of Ekiti people. They are different from other Yoruba people because they could be very stubborn and they could be very opinionated. And an Ekiti man, when he feels like he's on his right, he can. Uh, I don't know the word to use, but they can be very tough. Like so I must emphasize that the excesses of their jealous had a lot to do with Latos's carefree attitude towards tyranny, which is what I said earlier. And he himself was a very reckless autocrat. So now, shortly after Fabumi returned from Ibadan, like I said earlier, he also built his military base called the Egbe Mayehu. So this militia was like a cult-like. They had a cult-like fanaticism for liberation of Ekiti people, and they sought to defend the honor and prestige of Ekiti. Now, when Arelatosa emerged as the leader at Ibadan and led an expedition to Ekiti regions in 1875, Fabumi, a master tactician, one of the greatest Ekiti people of all times, he knows how to cut power. He knows how to mobilize people, and he knows how to encourage people, to instill courage in people. But one of his greatest tactics was that he was a diplomat. So he went to Arelatosa and said that Arelatosa should recognize his new group, the Mayehun cult. And Latosa accepted, and then he promoted him to the position of a Balogun. And many people were trying to advise Latosa against this move because they felt like Ekiti people were very stubborn people, and if you allow one of them to be recognized like that, it could pose a future problem because he is now under a legitimacy as a Balogun. But Latosa did not agree to this, and he told Fabumi that yes, he appointed him as the Balogun, and he became like an ambassador on behalf of Ibadan in Ekiti. And so they swore an oath. Fabumi and Latosa swore an oath based on Islamic rites. And after this, he officially now nominated him as Balogun of Okemesi. Now, with that title, Fabumi now appointed 8 lieutenants. He took them from different parts of the city. Like there was this Dada who became Zekaru, and he was from Odobi. And then there was Shongoloni, Ojoakala. He was also from Odobi. And then there was Umoru, who was from Okerena. That was his Otun. Then there was Adesumole. So he appointed like 8 people, Sha. Now, with this recognition, the Mayehu militia grew a lot of confidence. And so anytime the Ajeles were trying to molest or harass Ekiti people, they would go there and then they would try to defend them. They will respond in the same equal energy, and this became like a clash. That's why I called it like a clash of ego between Ekiti and Ibadan. The Ajeles saw themselves as overlords. So it's like, how dare you? How can we be trying to restore order and you will be coming to resist us? And Fabumi will now tell them, no, I'm also Ibadan also recognizes me as a Balogun here. So I too have what it takes to be able to stand my ground. So that became they started to have this kind of skirmish between each other, and it was now growing into resentments. They stayed to Ekponti Nira Wonsinu. Amonrara, Amonra, the Ajeles and the soldiers were now like, okay, we're going to deal with you, Fabumi, and you know, one plan between what man ambush here and really deal with him. So there was a time a female member of the Mayehu order was hosting a party. Her name was Onidoyo. So as the party was going on, the Ajala boys showed up and they wanted to disrupt the party. And so the drummers that were drumming for these people and all that, they now told the drummers to be drumming for them. That's the Ajeles. And they smashed their palm wine bottles and things like that. So the Mayehu people fought them back, and it would have resulted to a terrible situation. But the king sent his second in command, and he rushed there and helped them calm things. But the Ajala people insisted that no, we are going to find a way to get these guys. It's just a matter of time, you know. So now there was a very powerful Orisha in Ekiti. Is a water Orisha. I believe he's a Hinle or a Rinle, but it was a water. I don't know if he's a man or a woman, but it's a water spirit, and they call him a Rinle. Is that a Rinle or Inle?
Maybe
Uh,
Erinle.
say
I'm
that
not too
again.
sure. Erinle.
Eri- E- Erisile.
Hmm.
Is it
I,
Erisile?
no, I think
Erinlẹ̀
it's.
or Erinwọlẹ̀ àwọn òòṣà méjì omi tó wà ní.
So there is
Oh,
one that
but
is called Ininli, because
it's
I
a
know about
water. It's a water deity, sha. You know, Milongwe,
Erinlẹ̀ or
Erinle.
Erinle,
Erinwọlẹ̀ ó ní
Erinwole.
orúkọ tó máa ń pè by region ó dà pé the same thing ní méjèèjì bọ̀ bóyá àwọn Ìjẹ̀bú bóyá àwọn other people pé orúkọ Erinlẹ̀ or Erinwọlẹ̀ àwọn kan máa ń pè tán.
Oh, okay. So, but the Erinle was the most important Orisha in Ekiti land. So she was. I know that she's a goddess of fertility, and almost every household in Ekiti paid homage to Erinle. So, if you notice, many of the people of Ekiti, they dedicate their children to this Orisha. That's why most of them, their names always start with water. And I know that that's also common in Ijebu, but in Ekiti, you'll see most names start with Omi, Omi this, Omi that, Omi Diran, Omi, Omi Kunle, Omi Towoju, Omi Diji. That's a very I don't know if it's the same now, but that's how it was common in those days. Their names always so it's because of that Erinle. Erinle is a water spirit, and I believe Oshun River, that's where Irinle stays. And I believe Oshun came from Ekiti. The source is somewhere in Ekiti, if I'm correct. Because the groove is one of the most important places. When they celebrate Irinle festival in Ekiti, it's like you're celebrating Christmas. That's how big it was in those days. They have very special priests and all that. So this grove, this sacred grove is where they host most of these important festivals for Irinle. Now, the Ajalas knew that the Mayahu people will be at the event of the next one. So they decided that it was there that they would kind of do a massacre. Or not really a massacre, but an embarrassment of the Mayahu people, because they wanted it to be in front of the whole community. They wanted to okay, sorry. Sorry, the message that came in. They wanted to openly disgrace them. So they decided that they were going to do it when the people were at where the people were celebrating the Erinle festival. So now news of this leaked to Fapumi, and now Fapumi now said, okay, this is when I am going to start my revolt. Because Fabumi was actually nursing a revolt. He was planning to revolt. And I don't know, it's a suicidal thing to think. That's why I said Ekiti people. When it has gotten to a point where wọ́n feel pé ìyànjẹ ní nǹkan tó ń ṣẹlẹ̀ sí wọn, well, they don't succumb to it pé èèyàn kan lágbára jù mí lọ, èèyàn kan they will fight, and even if it leads to that's the stubbornness in an Ekiti man. You know, so if you want to understand how stubborn Ekiti people can be, just take time to study the elections of 1983. Was it in 1983 or the Omobori War and what was the other man? Yeah, names. Okay, well, there was an election in '83 where they now did that wet here. That Ekiti people were now kind of really going on rampage, burning down
Are
houses,
you thinking of
burning down.
Akasin, right?
Ajashi, thank you, Ajashi and Omopori. You can see that if you want to understand how stubborn Ekiti people can be, that's just observe that. You know, they won't like cheating, won't like in your jet, and so if it got to that point, they would They will stand their ground. So they've gotten to a point where they are tired of Ajeles. There was a situation that happened. I don't want to go into details. Torí mi ò fẹ́ kí ká tó wá máa jà láàrin ara wa. That's why TV or Shefe saw details. But Fabumi was a legend, an Ekiti legend. And the bravery of Fabumi should be, they should actually make him an Orisha. To become a Kweorie when you want to do an act of bravery. Because what he did was a suicidal thing. There was a wedding going on in Ekiti at that time. And the bride, very beautiful girl. You know, the way they used to do wedding on those times, the bride and all her family members would dance from their house all the way to the groom's house. So they were now telling the Ajele that, if you see this bride, very fine girl and everything, this guy sent his boys to waylay this bride. They brought him to the Ajele's compound. He did the wrong thing with this lady and then sent her back on the street to be going to her husband's house. That was an event that happened, and it happened in Ekiti, and this man witnessed it. There was another situation. Okay, let me let me not go into these details, but you can see that Fabumi, he just got to a point like it's like, no, we can't just go on kind of allowing this thing to happen, and then our place will not be a place that people won't treat that way. So when they told him that in that Erinle festival, they had to do
You're in
something
Matrix. Baba Gonka, you're in Matrix.
I'm in the matrix again. Now, wow.
We can't hear you. In case you were speaking, we can't hear you. Babakara, are you there?
They should not kill their leader. He had the leader of the that they should all um they should stop the celebration and all the kids and the women should leave. So it should just remain both them and the Ajeles. So yes, so while the festival was going on, right? Um you know, I'm trying to see the best way to put this. But they all marched to the grove where they do that festival. All the women were there and all that, people that wanted kids and all that. So, like I said, these Angeles people showed up while the ceremonial was at its peak. So was before they came, they started to drum the drum of war, and it grows. The rhythm said, "Eni duro deri awowawo." So they were using the talking drum to drum that "Eni duro deri awowawo." He who waits for the elephant will be trampled alive. He crushed to death. "Eni duro deri awowawo." Dun, 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 dun. So you know how the talking drums go now. So when they had those drums, Fabumi gave the signal to the priest. So they all ended the ceremony, and all of them kind of dispersed, and the crowd dispersed. Everybody went home. So when the soldiers of the Ajale arrived, they met with Fabumi and his boys. So they had already positioned themselves. They had their weapons hidden, but they didn't have weapons on themselves. So now um Fabumi asked them that, okay, where are they going and what do they want? Of course, this would further trigger them. And they were like, are you mad? How can you be questioning us? We are jealous here, we're in charge, you know. So it- he it led to a kind of tension between them. And during the argument at the grove, Fabumi told the soldiers of the Ajele that he had lived at Ibadan and that the most important festival at Ibadan at that time is called the Okebadan. Okebadan. Some is Okebadan celebration. They used to do it at Okebadan. And Fabumi now asked them that um if they were having that celebration, how would they feel if visitors showed up to disrupt it? Because Erinle is their most important celebration, is a spiritual exercise. How could they, fellow Yoruba people, come to that place to disrupt it? So of course, the questioning kind of further infuriated them, and the leader of the Ajeles he drew out his weapon and then reached out for Fabumi. So in a sprint of a second, the Mayo militants they all just dashed in and brought out their weapons where they hidden them under the bushes and close to the riverbeds and all that, and they massacred all the Ajeles there and then. Which was, of course, the Ajeles were not expecting that. Nobody would ever imagine that anyone would dare do something that's suicidal to attack a jealous of Oyo, the legendary Oyo warrior city, So this and then but he didn't allow he said that they should not kill they should not kill their leader. He had the leader of the Ajeles stripped naked, and then they marched him on the streets. They were singing and they were flogging him, and they were singing. I think the song was let me get that. Lai lai, oh ni jadiyemo, lai lai, oh ni jeromo. So that was what they were singing. And the reason why they were singing that song was because chickens and goats were many of the things like when the Ajeles show up in their houses, they would take their chickens, they would take their goats. So it's a form of taxation where they will now go and cook it in their own barracks and eat and all that. So they were now using that to mock him like, okay, now that you will die, let's see how you will come back to come and harass us for goats or harass us for chickens again. So now they paraded this leader of the Ajeles all the way to the shrine of Ogun, and then when they got there, they beheaded him and then spilled his blood on the Orisha Ogun. Now this was a revolutionary action, but it came with mixed feelings. Ibadan at that time had been in Ekiti for about 25 years. So many of the youths were actually born into knowing Ibadan to be their sovereign. So, the first invasion started during the Ijebu War that I mentioned, and that was in 1851. So this was at the time Balogun Ibikunle was the leader at Ibadan. And as you know, Ibikunle was actually the one who built Ibadan Empire. It was, Ibikunle was Ogboma from Ogbomosho, and Ogbomosho people are historically warriors, powerful warriors. So now, the Ibadan even took some places that Oyo did not take. That was how big the Ibadan people were as a mini empire at that time, and it was to Ibikunle, and that happened in the 1850s. So Ekiti was never really under Oyo. Ijesha was never under Oyo. So you can see that for Ibadan to do that feat, they went into places that Oyo didn't even go. So Ibikunle was the one that took many of these Ekiti cities and also made the powerful inroads into Ijesha territories. It was Ibikunle that conquered many of these Ijesha territories. So Ekiti was one of the big casualties of invasions from Ilorin and eventual counter invasions from Ijesha and Ibadan. So Ekiti was one of the hotspots for slave raidings for many years, and these were part of the things that made Fabumi a hero and a legend because he was now fighting and saying, "Okay, we can't be the victims." Ekiti was more like a casualty of the war between Ilorin and Oyo. So they got to a point where no, we don't. We want to now be neutral and we want to fight, but Ekiti was also guilty of going back to Ilorin, though, and we're going to get there. Maybe not on this session, but on another session, right? So this was what happened. Even after Ekiti now had their freedom, they ran to Ilorin, ran back to Ilorin, and did that. But after the massacre, fear gripped the people of Ekiti. The streets got empty, and some people even started plans to leave the city entirely. because they knew that Ibadan was going to come with a full-fledged revenge. The panic even got to the palace, and the council of chiefs now gathered. Everybody was scared. What Fabumi did was an attraction of war. So Ibadan people were known to be very revengeful. If you did that to them, they would come and have their revenge. And so you'll see there was a man called Lanloke. Lanloke was the ballet of Igodo. Lanloke was part of the people that was working with Emir Abdusalam and Emir Shita to invade Oyo. And after the fall of Oyo in the Eleduwe War of 1835, Lanloke was the one who invaded and now sacked Oyo. He was the one that now chased all of them out into exile, where all of them dispersed. Many of them spread around until Alaafin Atiba now created Oyo Agoja, and then all of them came back home. So, but you'll see that after about 20 years, Oyo people stationed at Ijaye went back and still revenged. They went to Godo and sacked it. So they don't forget things. They have revenge in their mind. So the king was very scared. He didn't know what was going to happen, but he knew that the situation would lead to a war. So now they now sent for Fabumi and they summoned him. And this is where we're going to end today, because the second session will now talk about the situations of the war. But when they now requested for Fabumi, Fabumi said, listen, we are Ekiti people and we should not be act like cowards. It's better for us to die as free men than for us to remain in this kind of bondage. And so when he started to talk, he started to now kind of ginger people. People started to get kind of motivated and all that. And then after all the talk, the king of Ekiti was now going to talk. And then he started with the with a story. And this was the story that he told. And this is what I'm going to end with. He said, two good friends. This is the king at Ekiti, the Kabiyesi that was talking now. He said two good friends, a blind and a cripple. One day got into a deep discussion on the misfortune that had befallen them. Each shared his pains with the other, but noting that life had been unfair to them. They neither were of any use to themselves, nor their families, nor the society. What was the purpose of living if one were unable to enjoy the good things of life? Now, what was the purpose of living if one were unable to enjoy the good things of life now, or at least have a guarantee that it will get better someday? They asked themselves, but had no positive answers to give. It was best to end it all, was the conclusion each came to. They both decided that they would end it inside the river and have a watery grave. Both went on to the riverside to carry out plans. At the riverbank, the cripple said his goodbye to the blind and proceeded to jump into the river. Rather than jump as agreed, he picked a large piece of rock along the back and threw it into the river. The blind man heard the sound too and screamed, "Yay, my friend is gone." He also got up and took his cane to find his way to the bank of the river to jump to his end. As he slowly went from side to side, maneuvering his way to where he thought was the departure point, he started singing in sorrow, Jiwara Jiwara, bí ẹni máa kú, ẹni ènìyàn Jiwara díẹ̀, Jiwara Jiwara. And they said that the translation means struggle, struggle. As death overcomes a man, he will struggle, even if a little struggle. Suddenly, his cane hit something, and a shout of pain erupted from the cripple. He had been hit where he had hidden, as he was not fast enough to maneuver his way out of the violent stroke of the cane. Surprised as someone and somewhat relieved too, they both now saw the folly in trying to end it all, when it was not up to them to take a life they never could create. They accepted that what fate had dealt them and went back to their homes. My people, as we can also as we can see also here, whether we like it or not, fate has brought war on us, and Ibadan would come for us. But even if Ibadan army would eventually devastate us, we can as well give them a good fight, and that's precisely what they should get from us as a people. courage and conviction. That's how the KBC ended the story. And because the KBC said that, the people now started to prepare for war. And Fabumi started to prepare his Mayan people for invasion, a fight of liberation, a fight for freedom of Ekiti people. So in the next session, we are going to talk about how the Kiriji War now evolved. So this is where we are going to end the room today. I don't know if people have things to say because people said the room gets too long. So that's why I'm always cutting it to 3 to 4 hours now. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Baba Bunka. Do we have anybody that want to that have any submission for us? Question?
So I just have some comments. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
I
please
ju-
go ahead, Remy.
okay. So thank you, Bonka, for the session. Um, just want to point out some things. When you talk about the Ekiti people, you know, about the character of Ekiti people, uh, being headstrong and co. One of the things that was recorded by David Indera about Ekiti people uh, were that Ekiti people would rather die than become the slaves of anybody. And that's why it's always a culture in Ekiti land, whenever, especially when they were fighting. Actually, I'll quote him. He said, the Ekiti people, according to Indera, I'm reading from Banji Akitoye's Revolution and Power Politics in Yoruba land. Uh, the Ekiti people, according to Indera, love their liberty and have been known in the hour of extremity to choose death rather than life of slavery. And that's why it's a common thing in Ekiti. Then, you know, they don't like becoming slaves. What happens is, you know, the father will kill his household and then commit suicide and then burn his house. That was what a number of that happened during the Ibadan, when Ibadan was actually trying to conquer Ekiti. So yeah, it wasn't an easy place for Ibadan to uh, to take. Another thing, I think it's a common thing that people say, but not necessarily true. And I think Akitoye later revised it, was that Ilorin was dominating Ekiti area, which was not necessarily true. The Ilorin did not made headway in Ekiti, and for two main
It actually did, though.
no, they didn't. They actually, it's generally believed the places that they were able to actually conquer were a handful. It was Itaji, Ishan, Oye, Ikole, those places close to the border. And why they couldn't make headway into Ekiti were two things. One, Fulanis were cavalry, so they need mounted guys. Ekiti area was hilly, so it was useless. That was why Ibadan was able to survive. Ibadan was infantry, right? Secondly, the strain of tsetse fly, and I think I have it somewhere in Akitoye's book. The strain of tsetse fly in the interior of Ekiti land is its strain. It's more virulent than that of the grasslands. So it's not easy for them. Yes, they make some raids on the ones that in the even Otun. The Fulanis couldn't even conquer Otun because Otun has learned military strategy from Oyo. They had relationship. You know, they come, you know, Otun gets Benin at times, gets Ibadan at times. So, you know, they didn't really subdue Ekiti like that. And a reference would be Akitoye's book on that, which he wrote on the Revolution and Power Politics in Yoruba land, Ibadan expansion and the rise of Ekiti Parapor. That doesn't mean that Ibadan doesn't have altruistic uh, uh, intention. They probably have altruistic intention to keep order, but at the same time, altruistic intention can also be strange bedfellows with selfish intentions too, to take slaves and to subdue people. So those things could exist side by side. Um, One of the things, another thing to point out is the Igbo War, and I think the significance of that war was actually, what it did. Because if you remember, the first incursion of the Ibadan into the Ekiti area was the Aye War, when Otun and Aye, which was a subordinate, were fighting, and Aye aligned with Ilorin, and Otun called in Ibadan soldiers. And then there were sub wars between Ibadan, Ikoro, then Ajiro, and things like that. One of the strategy of Ibadan is also isolating their targets. So they always tell the other cities, "Oh, don't join these people. We don't have anything to do with you. Don't come to their aid." Because even before the Ekiti Parappa War, the Ekiti people always come to each other's aid. They always come to each other's aid. Even when they said they should not help the Koro when Ibadan wanted to destroy it, people came, they came from all over the place to help. And that was after Ibadan defeated Ikoro. They started going to other places to destroy them. So they isolate, and then they couldn't also align with their Ijesha neighbors, because Ijesha also had expansionist intentions. So Ekiti people did not trust them.
So
Up to
you agree now that Ibadan, Vijesha had expansionist intentions,
Oh
but you
yeah,
didn't agree before.
I know I didn't disagree with it. I said that in my first submission. Now that was why Ekiti and Ijesha didn't trust each other before. What brought the trust was that Igbo war, right? When Ogedegbe, Fabumi, Aduloju, so when the Ekitis and Ijesha fought side by side, that was where that alliance started forming, and that was part of the things that also emboldened Fabumi later, right? That alliance was already forming. So yeah, it's the account of how that war started. You're right. It has to do a lot with the excesses of the no, leave, with the excesses of the Ageles. And if I can read out something, it's the meaning, because the Ageles. So, so if I read page 70 of Revolution and Power Politics, it said, among the Ekiti and Ijesha, the Ajeles and other Ibadan officials are spoken of as degenerate, greedy, and rapacious people, given to licentiousness and debauchery, forcefully taking or stealing whatever caught their fancy, and wantonly destroying much else, compelling wives in the presence of their husbands, and daughters before their fathers to yield to their insatiable desires. So these were the kind of debauchery that was going. That was the excess that was going on in, and it's not just Ekiti, but it was intense in Ekiti. Even the Oshun area that Ibadan posted Ajele, so there were excesses, but not as much as this. But the Ijesha, Ekiti, and the Igbomina area, because the Ekiti Parappa War was an alliance of those three people. People don't mention the Igbomina, but the Igbomina people played a big role there too, right? So this was what was happening, and it happened over a long time. That ended up in this harassment of Fabumi when he was having his festival, and the Ajele, different versions of that. There was a version that said some of his friends were sending him palm wine, and the palm wine was on the way, and the Ajele messengers, the CZ, they came to the Erile shrine to seize their food, and that was how Fabumi went, to his, back to his house, got harmed, and went to the Ajele, so Ajele house, and destroyed. Whichever version, what happened was that once Fabumi did that, Akin Toye mentioned that it became like a signal call for Ekiti and Ijesha and the Gomina people, and they massacred, or they sold into slavery. They even sacrificed some of the Ajeles in their midst to the gods. It became a total revolt in a way. There were some Ajeles that were good. An example was made of the Ajele in Emure, who was very good to the people, that the people sent him back, safely to Ibadan. They didn't do anything to him, and Ibadan appreciated that, because the Elemure was in captivity in Ibadan that time, so they sent the Elemure back as a token of their appreciation too. So yeah, so I'm looking forward to the next session on this. It's a very rich history. Yeah, thank you.
Yes, so now that you have kind of watered the ground, let me just give a preamble just a snippet into next session about the events that will lead to the war. So it was something that you see at this time, Arelatosa was busy fighting a campaign with Egba people, so he wasn't really bothered about Ife per se, and bothered about Ekiti. So one thing that he did shortly after the Ehinle massacre or Ehinle killing of those people, he sent some soldiers to Ekiti, and they came with a white covered calabash, and they gave it to the Kabiesi, and they said that that calabash should be returned, that they should cut off Fabumi's penis, and then put his two testicles in that calabash, and then they should cut off his head, and they should put it in that calabash. The king at that time, his name was Oba Aponlese. These names, eh? So so they asked for Igba Okeowo. So I think Oke is cowrie shells, right? If I'm correct. So Okeowo is like money coming from. Can people hear me? Hello. Hmm. Thank you, much. Little
Yes, we
signal.
can hear you. Go ahead.
Oh, yes, sir. Thank you,
Loud and
sir.
clear. We
So
can hear you. Go
so
ahead.
yes, sir. Yeah. So when they got to Kabiesi of Akonlese and said, this is the message, oh. So the Kabiyesi sent for Fabumi. I said, Fabumi, Orolode, you. These people have come. This is the said. So Fabumi now responded and said they should go back to the sender and tell him that he is the one that will end up getting his head and testicles injection. you know. So he now said that in future they should not go to the Kabiyesi's house, that they should come directly to his house. So he now told them that they should come to. He said that they should come. That he was going to show them his house. And so he took them, instead of taking them to his house, he took them to a designated place and he slaughtered all these messengers. They only kept one person who went back to Ibadan to go and report the thing. So I think he was determined that no, this time around, I have the bravery of Fabumi is a very interesting one. Because it's like I don't know. If you dared Ibadan at that time, especially Ekiti, it's understandable if Ogedengbe did it because Ijesha had a very formidable. Even at that time, it was a daring thing for Ijesha, but Ekiti, that was beyond brave for him to have done that, and for him to not have been fearful with all these things. They were just kind of interesting things to me because even after he did that, he now did I think it was in 1878. They now did a massacre of all of the Ajeles in that area, and that thing now spread into Ijesha land. You know, there were hundreds of them that were killed. So, and this was now, when you say that what is Ilorin people, if when you say that they didn't have a reign over Ekiti, there was an Aroko that the emir, I believe his name was Emir Shita, sent to Arelatosa at Ibadan at that time because Arelatosa was telling him that, listen, these Ekiti people, after a while, Ekiti started to build and then they started to now fight. They were now trying to chase away Ibadan's influence in Ekiti region and Ijesha region. Not only were they killing these Ajeles, they were even killing Ibadan citizens. So he went back and now tried to form an alliance with the Lorin people so that he can have a backup of friends. That was Fabumi, and this was before Gedengbe accepted to join him in the Ekitiparapa War. And the Ibadan people were now telling the Lorin people like, this thing that you're doing is a dangerous thing. And the emir sent a message to Ibadan and said, if you had a mistress and that mistress left you, and this mistress now comes back, and this mistress is now saying that she wants to be forgiven, would you accept her back or not? So that message from the emir of Ilorin to Latos at Ibadan is a suggestion that Ekiti was once under Ilorin. I don't know if you are getting my drift, Mr. Remy. That's where that's where I reached my conclusion, because that was a, and if you remember Balogun Inokoju, the Balogun Anamano of Ilorin, as at the time that the British restricted him, that was during the reign of Emir Suleimanu. He was planning attacks on Ekiti region, and one of his reasons was that he wanted to bring Ekiti back under Ilorin. So, but all this they're going to be addressed detail for detail, because I don't like to jump chronologies in the next session, because the next session is going to kind of be more loaded, because we're now going to go into the breakdown of the war, okay, based on battle strategies, Fabumi's battle strategy, how Ondo people joined, how it now ended up to become a Kitikwara for war, and how the British was able to now kind of use this for their own agenda as well. So that's where I'm going to end for today. Is there any last roundup before we close the room?
I think everyone has done well. That Irinle, I'm still trying to get where we are going with Irinle, because if I'm thinking it's Irisile or something like that, because the Bisha people, after the war, uh, we brought Erisile back, and today we have the Erisile in our place. So when we do the part two, I will try to get either it's Erisile or Irinle, because if it's the deity that we have in Igbajo today, that we know as, we have one shrine in Igbajo that hosts this god of war. So I'm trying to know, maybe you are talking about the god of the war,
No,
or
Erinla is a water spirit, and is responsible for fertility,
oh
not war.
Enrile
it's
could also
different.
be hippopotamus. That's your power for hippopotamus too.
Yes.
No,
So I'm trying to
hippopotamus is
know.
Erimilokun, not
Sorry,
Erinle
Erinle.
now.
Sorry. Yeah, sorry. You're right.
So I'm trying to know, but when we do the second section, I will see where we get to. But everybody has done well. May God bless everybody. May God give you more knowledge and understanding about our people. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yeah. One last person before we go.
Well, perhaps this commentary is more suitable for next week. Maybe it's preemptive, but I just wonder what can we learn from all of this history in terms of practicality for today? Because if we see that the oppression of certain people by of certain Yoruba by others is leading to what eventually became a civil war, right? What is the import for today, right? Are there classes of people that are oppressing other Yoruba people, whether politically, economically, etc., um, or even in the political movements, right? And to the extent that I think that these things weaken us, and they allow others to exploit us, as we'll see in the case of the British with this whole chapter that we're going into. So I think we should ponder that and explore it. Thanks.
That's actually where I'm going in the next session. We Yoruba people have a very bad habit, and our habit is that tí a bá ń bára wa jà, a máa ń para ìtako wa dá sí. That's where I'm going with this, but I don't want to jump the gun. But let's wait till the next session to break that down.
Yeah, Bonka, may I read something now?
Yes.
Uh, Yeah, so I'm still reading Akitoye's book. So he said around the northeast of Ekiti, he was talking about the Fulanis, where the forests are less dense. They made some headway and subjected the kingdoms of Ishan, Itaji, Oye, Ikole, and Obo to severe punishment. Whenever they attempted to venture into other parts of the Ekiti country or into the Jesha country, however, they met with failure. The horses subjected to the strains of the hill, the forest, and the tsetse flies, seeking or die. The cavalrymen, unused to fighting without their horses, were quickly hunted down in the forest and hills. The hordes were against Ilorin domination of Ekiti and Ijesha. So, I mean, we don't need to belabor it, but we know they made headway, but not as much as probably claiming in some other stuff. And to your point, yes, we always call outsiders. I think Ibadan got into Ekiti land because they also called them, right. They initially they didn't understand that place, and with the failure of Ilorin, they were not so much interested. But when Haye invited Ilorin and Otun invited Ibadan, with that Ibadan was able to learn and understand what Ibadan usually do, because what people don't understand the importance. I mean, Ibadan, like you said, is like the NDA. It's not like exaggeration. Ibadan is the elite military. They have military training, so you have to be the top of the top to graduate from that place. So they have serious military training there, intelligence and everything you can think of in modern states. The Ibadan people they've gotten in. So they come into an area, they can join with their point where they join with the Nupe to fight against the Ibira. Their ultimate intention was to learn that area and you know take over the Ijumu, the Yagba people. They were under Nupe subjection that time. So that's what they usually do. They were able to learn the Ekiti side. So by doing fighting, going into the interior, they were able to understand that, and that was how they were conquer those places. So yeah, I think everything about Yoruba, every problem we've had is always where we invite outsiders to come in, and it always leads to problem.
Well, in addition to not inviting outsiders to come and participate in our own issues, I think also we should just not oppress each other. Period. Because if I am an Ekiti man, or let us put it in terms of classism. If I am in a middle to lower economic class, and the so-called Yoruba elite are oppressing me by exploiting resources that belong to all of us, and making enriching only themselves, while we all suffer from a poor economy, I will get help from wherever and whomever wants to help me. I won't say that because you are a Yoruba man and you are Yoruba like me, I will not seek help and advantage from someone that can help me to end the oppression of myself. So we can say, don't oppress each other, so that we don't have to divide each other. I mean, but others don't have an opportunity to play divide and conquer.
So Afoja
So
was right
Afoja,
to have gone to the Jamas to help him then. And the Lagosians were right to have gone to the British because of the oppression of Kosoko. And
Bonka,
Ogedengbe was right to have gone.
Bonka, it's easy to say, right? When you are not the
But
one.
Ibadan did the same thing at Bonka.
But wait,
Ibadan during the Battle of Iwo,
listen to
they
me
had
first.
they had the lorry on their side, and Ijaye had the lorry on their side during the Ijaye war again.
So,
So people always do that now. Ibadan did that. They even went on the opening war with the lorry to pursue an issue. So all of people do that. It's military alliance, and when people are pushed to the wall, it's always. I think the lesson is, don't oppress each other. People will always align. When the battle felt it wasn't yet strong to face Kurumi, they aligned with Ilorin, even though they fought each other in 1840. So Ibadan was not like Ibadan wasn't guilty of it.
People
So
always talk about this about the alliance with Ilorin. I've heard it a lot, even from my friends that I feel are very well versed in history. But I don't see that alliance. I
okay,
never
I
saw it.
have references. I
I
can
never.
send references to you, Bonka. I have
well,
references.
Bonka, look,
Yeah.
I think that when we are speaking to each other, Let us always recognize what is correct, what is right, and then line up behind that thing. Because it is easy to say that don't seek help from an outsider when you are not the one who is suffering. If your foot is on my neck and you are pressing it down, you are taking my girls and sleeping with them, you are coming to collect my crops and what I have for sustenance, and I ask you to stop. I resist, but I'm not strong enough. Look, when it comes to survival, nobody will say that because an Igbo man is not Yoruba, don't get help from him. It's not realistic. So, what we should say is this: don't oppress your brother. Because if you oppress your brother, you are forcing him into the hands of the enemy or the hands of the other, I should say, who may come in and play you both of you against each other. So when the right idea comes forth, let us embrace it and support it and not, deny it.
Now the Ijesha warrior is on stage. Oh, should I run? Should
Uncle Bonka. Nothing to
Bonka, please give me a recap of Ade's question, I beg.
What do you mean? No, according to
I'm just very
Ade
curious to
believes that
know.
according to Ade believes that it's okay to go to an outsider if you are under oppression. And I think that's a dangerous move. I think it's no matter how much you're oppressed, because the person that you're calling from outside is equally as dangerous as the person you are fighting.
Uncle Bonka.
So, the,
Uncle Bonka.
ah,
Bonka, that's a very simplistic.
One house, please. One house.
Who's the
One
only one
house.
out? Oh,
If
okay.
you have
But
anything to say, blink your mic, please.
with Bonka, I think that's a very simplistic, and I understand why it's strategic, right? But that's a very simplistic view of my point, right? No one is happy to go and get help from an other who is not your own brother. But what I'm saying to you is that when someone is in a bad position and they're desperate, they are tired of you taking their women, they're tired of you robbing them, they're tired of you oppressing them. Human nature will seek help from whomever, whenever. So instead of putting the burden on someone who needs to be liberated from oppression, instead of putting the burden on them to say, well, don't go to another person for help, why not say to the oppressor, don't oppress your brother? This thing is not hard now.
so I will yield the mic, but in a minute, let's retract first. You know that even after all these things, of course, they asked for calabash and all that, and money and things like that. You know that Ibadan did not do anything. It was now, even after everything that Ekiti did, Ekiti now started to now Fapumi in 1878. I didn't want to talk about this today, but let me just give you a quick. He led a coalition of Ekiti Parapo Confederate warriors, and then they launched an all-out offensive to take back all the lands in that region that was under Ibadan. So the first state they took from Ibadan was Igbajo, and you know that Igbajo has always been a sensitive place. Now they now started to attack. They attacked the Resi. They attacked Ada. They attacked Oton. Now, so with this rising momentum, right? They now brought in Ilorin to come and join them in this attack, to come and be attacking against Ibadan. So at what point do you switch from a victim now to an aggressor? It's understandable when Fabumi was fighting for the liberation of his people. Is it also understandable when Fabumi now goes to Ilorin and now starts to attack his people too? So, at what point do you now become what you are fighting against, and it becomes the right thing to do? You know, so I mean, it was the Ilorin factor that actually triggered Latosa, and that was why Latosa now decided, that, okay, you guys want war, you're going to get war, and that was when he sent Balogun Ogboriefon. Balogun Ogboriefon went to Ekiti area in October of 1878. And this guy, in no time, he had disbanded all of Fabumi's army. He killed a lot of those Mayehun soldiers. And in fact, Prince Adeyale, one of the big members, also from a royal family like Fabumi, was killed there. So now, after he did that, he took all those lands and he was going to actually invade Okemesi and raise it down. Latos had told him, no, you have already finished your campaign. Can you come back home? He was going to go into Okemesi and actually kind of burn it down to the ground, you know. But that also was also a mistake, because after he left, Fabumi should have just stayed and they should be enjoying the freedom. Guess what he did? He now came back stronger, went into bringing Ogedengbe, and now they went on a full-blown war that led to the Ekiti-Parappa War. Went to join with the British. The British was now working with the Saros in Lagos, supplied them with guns and weapons, Sniper rifles. They now started to so they now became willing tools in the hands of British for the conquest agenda of all of Yoruba people. So this is the question: at what point do you draw the line that you don't go from the victim to the aggressor? Like I said, I don't want to go into all these details today. We're going
No,
to.
you can't say all of this and
No,
say
you
you don't
can't
want to
say
go
it.
into
So
details.
I'm an
Eh?
Ekiti man. I'm
One
here, so
house,
I'm going
one
to land.
house,
Yeah.
one house, one house. Remy, please hold on. Let Olukotu go. After Olukotun, then you can go.
Thank,
Olukotun, please go.
thank you, my brother Bonka. I always enjoy your narratives, you know. If nothing else, we get to educate ourselves on the instances, and the particular incidents of history. But I am not convinced that we get the correct interpretation, though. That is where you and I disagree. We can agree that these things happened, but we always disagree on the interpretation. So let us dial back a little bit. You say, Fabumi revolted and then he went to call the Ilongis. Now, there is documented history. I don't have my books with me here, I'm driving. But if you go and visit even Samuel Johnson, who observed a lot of this, and the later historians who wrote accounts of this history, before the whole Ekiti, Parakwa, and Ilori alliance, Ibadan and Ilori have been in bed back and forth, back and forth. Not just Ibadan, even before Ibadan, even Oyo and Ilori have been in bed back and forth. Go and look at the Batedu wars. Go and look at what was this war that they were trying to capture this slave. That the first attempt of pacification of the Ekiti country by Ibadan, they called Ilori that they should jointly pacify Ekiti.
Open,
Uh, I,
open what?
I, I, I wish I was with my books here, but you go and look it up. So, but let us set that aside. This whole idea that Ekiti called Ilori, historians will tell you that Ekiti revolted against Ibadan, and Ilori took advantage and also attacked Ibadan at the same time. Not that Ekiti made a concerted effort to go and call Ilori. So, and you keep referencing the Jalumi War. The Jalumi War was the war that Fabumi and his cohorts attacked Ibadan. But they did not attack Ibadan at Ikinu. They attacked Ibadan at Igbajo, because Igbajo was distributed territory. The Ijeshas considered Igbajo Ijesha territory. And at the same time, the Iloris took advantage and attacked Ibadan at Ikirun, and that is where Ibadan pushed the Ilorin back, and that is what led to the Jalumi War. So the Ikitis did not Jalumi, it was the Ilorins that Jalumi. But I've heard you say this story and when you confuse the two.
No,
That is
no, I
what.
know that. I know
So,
it was the Lawrence that Jalumi. Yeah.
okay, so I'm happy that you know that. So now, that being said, right, let us, probe what Ade said. Why are you pushing me? You call yourself my brother, but you want to kill me, and you say I shouldn't go and get help from outside. Outside that you have gotten help from so many times, that if I didn't get help from that outside, that is where you would have gone. And outside that you have gotten help from these same people against me in the past, right? Well, let us put that aside. Let us do a little lesson in geography. Me, I don't know too much history. I only know tatata here and there. But let us do a little lesson in geography. You say we shouldn't call outsiders. The first people to defeat the before geography, the first people to defeat the Ilongis were the Ijeshas at the Kwale War, without any outside help. Right? The only people to resoundly defeat the mighty Oyo Empire in history, when I say resoundly defeat the mighty Oyo Empire, when the Oyo Empire tried to make incursion to their land, was the Ijeshas. that it took
Yeah,
months.
please. Who was the king at that time? Was it Ajagbo
Ah,
or
I
Senoto?
can't remember. I wasn't
That
prepared
is.
for this bunker. I'm driving. I don't
No,
have
you're
all my.
correct. But I mentioned it earlier, but I was trying to remember the king.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, so forgive me. My details might not be spot on. I'm actually driving right now. I don't have my resources with me right here. I wasn't prepared.
Quick question. You said Saudi. Did I heard you right? You said, did I heard you saying Saudi? I don't know.
Saudi
Maybe.
care. What you? No
Okay.
Saudi.
I thought I had Saudi. You said something Saudi.
No, I didn't say anything about Saudi.
Okay, I thought I had Saudi. Go on, please.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, but that being said, now let us talk about the how Ibadan came to be, etc. and etc. Right? Ibadan came to be because of the collapse of Oyo. Oyo Ile, bunker. Where is Oyo Ile?
It will be in Kwara State. I believe it will be probably in Niger or Kwara States of today.
Yeah, so
Mhm.
somewhere in Kwara
Yeah.
State of the very
Yeah.
near the banks of the river, somewhere east, so I'm sorry, somewhere west of Jeba, a little bit south of the river Niger Bend. So way up north, right? You say Ibadan was trying to liberate all of Yoruba land. So we see where the incursion came from, or your elite too local long, right? We see in history that the Ijeshas have resoundingly defeated the Ilorizo, right, at the Pole War. We see that. And you want to liberate all of Yoruba land, you're not calling your Ijesa brother and say, we have seen what you have done against the Lorings. My brother, come, let us do this thing together. It is until you put a jelly on my land and you're trying to liberate me against an enemy I have defeated.
Do you know of the Ijebuere War?
Ijebuere.
Ere, yeah. So can you, because you are not putting these things in the perspectives, but can you talk about
No,
the
now, don't tell
Ijebuere?
me the
That was
perspective
during
now.
the
You
time
have
of,
already said your own perspective. Man, I'm just doing small geography here. You know me,
yeah.
I don't know history too much,
Yeah,
right?
but you are skipping the fact that Ijesha also was going on an
Mhm.
expansionist agenda as well.
Yeah, the one that is saying that now, so you explain. Because
Okay.
the only expansionist agenda that me I know that you claim Igbajo, which Ijesha is saying no is my territory, and the Ijesha F1 war, right? Now, do
So
you know
are
where
you, are
F1
you
is?
saying Ijesha did not attempt to
Wait now,
attack Ilefe or Ikiti states, city states?
wait now. That's what I'm trying to address to you here now. So to tell me the city states, I'm telling you the two that me I know, right? Igbajo and F1. Ife and Ijesha have boundary disputes. Ijesha never tried to claim Ife. They're only trying to assert boundaries with Ife. That are two different things, right? Now, you know where F1 Alaye is, right? It's right down the boundary with Ijesha. Do you know where Ibadan is relative to all these lands? So me and my neighbor were fighting. You say I'm trying to expand. Then you come from miles away. You are not expanding. No, you are coming to settle fight and you're taking over everything. Who's expanding, please? This is common sense. You look at where Ibadan is to Ijesha land. Look at where F1 is to Ijesha land. When an F1 man speaks and an Ijesha man speaks, you cannot differentiate the dialect. And then you say, I'm the one expanding. But you come all the way from Ibadan, long. You are not expanding, you are protecting. Meanwhile, the people that chased you down south, they are further north. You say you are protecting us and you're coming further down south. I don't have too much common sense, but bí mi ò kàwé mo kanú. Ẹ̀yin èèyàn ẹ bá wa dá sọ̀rọ̀ yìí. Eh? So who's expanding? Who is on a conquest mission? So that's all me I will say. Oh. Thank you.
Okay.
So Remy, you can go on. Ife,
Okay.
you
No,
blink your mic.
I
Do you have
think
a
would
statement?
we let the people that I to self, I want to respond, but I wanted those who haven't spoken first. What do you think, man?
Okay, please go then. Afterwards, then Remy can go. Thank you, Baba Gbanka.
No, I mean if I can stay. I can.
No, actually, Remy, you go. It's better you go. You go after you, then Remy can go. Ife will even go after Remy. Remy was before
Yes,
Ife.
because if I
Go, Baba Gbanka.
respond, Olukotun would want to respond as well, and then would.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
Can I say one more thing?
yeah.
Just to address what you said, Bunker. I'm so sorry. I forgot this. So now we talked about during the Kitiparako was the Ijashans and the Kitis. They called the Sarus to come and help them. Let us even talk about the British. They called the British through the Saru. Let us talk about these Sarus. These Saros are returned slaves, oh, and guess where these Saros came from originally? They came from the Ijesha Ekiti land. So, but now they've had advantage with of British education and all of that. They have access to British weapons. How did they become slaves in the first place? Who enslaved them? Can we ask Bonka? Shelley Sofua?
Eh,
Look at it. These
oh,
are for the
Eh?
next session.
I
You are
know
jumping.
now because you say I want to expand, I want to
hold
shake back, I
on,
want to be outsider.
hold
I'm
on,
just
please. Olukoto, please hold on. We will want to go
yeah.
in there now, please. Maybe in another section. Let Baba Bonka first answer. I mean, yeah, answer to the first, your first submission. Afterwards, Remy can go. Thank you.
So what Olukoto is saying is that Igbajo people did not have the right to say they do. I'm not saying that Ijesha people, their presence was not in Igbajo, but these people were the ones who reached out to Ibadan and said, "Come and help us." Same thing with Ikirun. When Ikirun was attacked, these people were the ones who came to them and said, "Come and help us." So it wasn't like Ibadan just went there. These guys came there and asked for help. So for me, I see Ibadan as okay, where was Ijesha when Ali of Ilorin attacked Oshogbo? Okay, if we say Oshogbo was part of Ijesha and all that, well, Ijesha knew how to attack Oshogbo when they wanted to claim that yes, you are under us. But when they now invaded in 1840 and they wanted to attack Oshogbo, where was Ijesha people? Where did it was it not Oluyole that Oshogbo ran to and said, please come and save us? These guys were even going into those sacred groves. So these are just the things that I want us to Ibadan. We are always looking. One of the things that Olukotun does that I
Can
think we
I answer
have
that
to.
question?
Okay.
Okay. So now by 1840, right, the demographics of Oshogbo had changed greatly, right? Because of the Oyo refugee crisis that Oshogbo,
Okay.
for the
Remy said
most
that.
part, what?
I think Remy said that earlier
Oh,
too.
okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, I wasn't here. So, okay, so you can say I'm not lying, right? So it is only logical that the calls to Ibadan, their fellow Oyo brothers. So this is not a matter of where was Oshogbo and where was Ijesha, where was this or that, right? Now, as I said, me and you, we don't disagree that this thing happened or that thing did not happen. Is the interpretation. So let us even say Ibadan now came to Oshogbo.
Olukoto, hold on, please.
Yeah.
You've mentioned that there are other peoples on the line that want to speak.
Ejide ẹjọ ẹ jẹ́ kí Olúkọ̀tún lọ. Igi ìwé ni wọ́n. Àwọn
Baba Bonga, please don't
national
let
treasure
it
ni.
like that. No,
National
Baba
treasure
Bonga, sorry.
lolúkọ̀tún.
But I
No, no,
understand.
let
I
other people
understand,
go.
Baba
Let
Bonga.
other people go.
Olukotu we go. I know Olukotu we go, but please, there are other people that bring their mic, so let them speak afterwards. Then Olukotu can take
Yes.
turn
Yeah, I
again.
agree with you. Thank you.
Another
I
thing I
apologize.
want us to put into perspective, which is one of the things that I think makes me and Olukotun fight a lot. Olukotun always looks at Ibadan as
Fight
if it's an
Ike,
extension of Oyo.
Bonka. When do we
No,
fight?
I'm talking of intellectually. Intellectually, one of the things that make us fight a lot is that you always look at Ibadan as an extension of Oyo. Ibadan people do not see themselves. Yes, you can say that Ibadan people love to take Oyo titles. I won't dispute that. But Ibadan people did not see themselves as an extension of Oyo. They saw themselves as a melting pot of all Yoruba people. And I would argue.
Jide, please, I am so sorry, but I have to respond to this. Bonka, you are flat out wrong. This is the first time I will tell you are flat out wrong. Even in the negotiations of peace, when the Alaafin spoke and they asked Ibadan to speak, Ibadan will say, no, if Alaafin has spoken, there is nothing for them to say. So this one that you are saying they are not seeing
Okay,
themselves as an extension of Oyo.
apart from Oluyole, can you tell me any leader of Ibadan that came from Oyo? Of all the leaders,
It is not
will you
about
tell me anyone
so
that
it's
was
not
from Oyo?
about whether a leader came from Oyo. It is about they consider themselves the military arm of the Oyo Empire, of what was left of the Oyo Empire. And I'm telling you, at the end of the whole thing, in 18, when did the whole even war ended, that they were signing treaties with the British. When they asked Ibadan to sign, Ibadan said, if Allah Afin has signed and spoken, they have nothing to say because their king has spoken. So, ta ló ń fún baálẹ̀ Ìbàdàn ní authority láti jẹ baálẹ̀? Ọ̀yọ́ kọ́ ni. This one I am
No,
saying is,
kò ń ṣọ̀jọ́. Àárín wọn náà ti ń yọ leader fúnra
I
wọn.
mean, we're not in your, but the ceremonial authority comes from Oyo. It's already what she love to fi jẹ baálẹ̀ because Oyo lọba wà. Àbó mọ̀ túmọ̀ baálẹ̀ ni.
It's a gray area, Sha, but let's not go into it.
Okay, well,
Yeah, yeah.
I saw the grey area, báyìí kò sí problem.
Madam Ejide, over to you.
Really? I'm allowed to take over now. Okay, oh, Baba Bonka.
If we go on this tangent, this nobody else will talk. That's why.
So that's why. So, Remy, so sorry for that. So please go.
Thank you, Olukotun. I think Olukotun made some of my points right, because you don't expect when we start saying why did the Ekiti ally with Ilori, do you expect the Ekiti to fight on two sides, fight Ibadan, fight Ilorin, the two major powers at that point? And as Ibadan has aligned with Ilorin on a number of at least two, the Battle War and the Open War, when they were looking for issue, which two of them went to
But
raid.
you agree that all this trouble started from Ilorin, right? The reason why we were all fighting is because Ilorin decided to disturb us. Jihadists showed up at Ilorin and
No,
decided to
no,
cause trouble.
nobody is
Agreed, right?
disputing that. Yeah,
Yeah.
but nobody is disputing that. But I'm
So
putting
how
this
can
in
there be the solution to the problem?
bunker. When you are in trouble, you will look for, okay, why are they the solution for Ibadan? Because Ibadan aligned with them during the battle war against Ijaye, and Ijaye aligned with them against Ibadan. Ibadan aligned with them again during the open war
So
where they were
what
looking for.
happened at
So
that time was that. So do you know that Yoruba Baloguns of Ilorin were reconnecting to their brothers at that
they,
time?
it is possible, but what I'm telling you is
Ye-
that, right? This Ibadan did the same thing too. And we cannot say it is because Ibadan cared for the Ijesha and Ekiti people, because you have to look at it. How do Ibadan see those people? You remember the conference they did after where they make Arekunmi their Area Kakanfo. One of the state policy, if you read Samuel Johnson on page 2882, they said that the Ibadans were to protect all Yoruba towns to the north and northeast and meet whatever danger might arise in those quarters, to have a free hand over all Ijeshas and Ekitis and the eastern provinces generally, to reduce them to subjection. I mean, you have to reduce them to subjection. You didn't say that about the Oyo towns, right? You have to go and reduce these people if you to subjection. They need to have a free hand over them. And you also look at it. What is the attitude of Ibadan to the people in this area? Do they
So do
really
you
see them so
consider
much?
Ibadan people to be tyrants? I get uncomfortable when people look at a people that saved us from falling to become slaves in our
I,
ancestral home. And you
I'm
kind of it gets me kind of uncomfortable. I don't know where how we
Oh,
reason it though.
so Bonka.
Bonka,
I don't know why
Ibadan
you are
people
reading it
have
that way.
never saved Ijesha people from being a slave, my brother.
No,
So
they
you can save a
and
lot
and
of
and
people,
and,
but
and,
not
and that
Ijesha
and
people.
that sorry, Kabiesi, and that
Go
was a
ahead,
rule.
Remy.
Yeah, that was a rules that they want to say. I have read it to you from Akitoye's book. Substantial part of Ekiti was never under Ilorin. It was never under Ilorin, contrary to what Samuel Johnson said. Akitoye came after him. And it wasn't like they are treating these people as they are equal. As Olukotu said, who sold even those saros? Let me read again from, because I don't want to say, this is my work or something like that. This is Falola in his article, From Hospitality to Hostility, Ibadan Strangers, 1820 to 1904. And I'm reading this because for you to understand, how do Ibadan see these people? Yeah, do they see these people as friends or family? I'm reading page 7 of this. Said, was talking about citizenship and how you can the people that can aspire to high office in Ibadan, because we generally say all Yorubas are accepted. That is partly true but partly misleading. He said first from the 1830s, when the Oyo Yoruba had dominated the system, it had worked their favor. They provided all the leading political elite throughout the century. From the beginning, three Yoruba subgroups were specifically excluded from government: the Egba, Ijebu, and Ife, all of whom they regarded as their enemies for wanting to liquidate them at their new town. Okay? And let me say the other notable Yoruba subgroups in Ibadan were the Ijesha, Akoko, Ekiti, and Igbomina. Apart from the fact that there's no record of anybody from any of these groups who held any of the town's chieftaincy titles, the Ibadan seem to have had some contempt for them. There are scattered references to them as Anweruwa, people with little weight, people without plenty intelligence. I'll be back.
Okay. Well,
Kabisi, Ife, sorry, I know you want to go, but please let's give Kabisi space to go.
Please let Ife go. Please let Ife go. I'll go after her.
All
Please.
right, thank you for
Okay,
that.
I'm
Ife,
back. Sorry. Yeah,
okay, go
yeah.
ahead. Ife, sorry again for
So
that.
yeah,
Go after.
so you can see the attitude. That is not a savior attitude. Akintoye also confirmed this in his book. Again, the attitude of Ibadan. Again, it was supposed to be a slave reservoir. So in a way, yes, they want to fend off Elisha, which we are fend off Ilorin, but at the same time, there was serious exploitation of the people. Ibadan itself, if you want to accuse Ekiti of taking British help of the Ekiti Parapor, Ibadan did the same thing too. What were the Willobbies doing in Lagos? The Willobbies were the Oyo people that they were all in the newspapers every time. Glover was a known admirer of Ibadan. At a point, he was a big supporter of Ibadan. The British were actually advocating for Ibadan for the route to the sea to be open. So you can't say, oh, it's only the Ekiti, oh, they took the British, and then because of that. No, this was what was happening during war. If the people feel oppressed, if they will take help from anybody, because I don't know if it is different when the Ibadans, I read Akitoye, where they describe them as people that sexually assault wives and daughters in front of their husband. They are jealous. Are you
yes,
saying are you
yes.
saying it is bearable because it is coming from Yoruba people,
No,
that the
that's not
Yorubas,
the
the Ekiti,
point.
should just suck it off?
The point was that at the point when Fabumi had now fought them off, right? Ibadan was not planning to come and attack and revenge. Latos, I was busy fighting Egba people. I don't see the need why he had to run to Ilorin and then they had to come there and start fighting their neighbors. That's what I don't understand.
Because
But I mean, I don't want to go into that rabbit hole.
the
But
belief as held by others was that whether right or wrong, Ibadan must be one, kicked out of that Ijesha Ekiti countryside, and if possible destroyed, because of what has happened over the years. If you I don't know if you I mean you started from a bit in the middle. I don't know if you touch on it next week. The Aye and Otun the Aye war was another very happened before, and
uh-huh.
the atrocities that they committed there in those places. I mean, there are places that Ibadan goes, they burn the people's farmland just to cause panic and all of Ibadan. You remember, Ibadan is a military power. They understand power and how it works. So we have to acknowledge that. You're talking about small places and all of those things. Another thing you also have to realize is also we talk about Igbajo, and I think I mentioned it. Oluko also mentioned it. What Elisha was, yeah. What Elisha was fighting for was its right. Igbajo was an Elisha town. They took in, they took in Oyo people. Oyo people became much. Oyo people took over and started aligning with their Oyo Yoruba Ibadan brothers. And that thing is painful to Elisha. The same thing happened in Ekiti land. Ikere did not go to Kiriji war because of the large concentration of Oyo indigenes there. Because they convinced them not to join their their Ekiti brothers. We had the same thing in Ekiti. Everywhere where Oyo refugees were taken in large numbers, they either align with Ibadan or demoralize the people, or as in the case of the Ajero War, which that also has large Oyo Yoruba, they asked as fifth column for Ibadan to destroy the place. So, I mean, these things we have to put in context. One of the few times I agree with Hade, I think we need to understand that we shouldn't be oppressing each other. That is the long and short of it. Ibadan is great. I'm partly from
So
Ibadan. My
you
own
don't
mother
see
is
an
Ibadan. My father
element
is Ekiti.
of jealousy, because I would ask you, what did
I,
the Ibadan do to Ijebu people? What did the Ibadan do to Ijebu people? What was the reason for Gedengbe? By the way, Ibadan was
because
the one that made him what he was.
Maturisha made it his objective to destroy Abeokuta, right? He fought war with the
Oh
Egba, and
no.
he told
Okay,
Ijebu, wait
we'll
now, that
do
was
this.
what was
We'll handle
happening
this on the
now.
next session. He
Let's talk
never had
about it
plans
next
to
session.
destroy
Yeah.
Abeokuta. That's not true. He only wanted
Okay.
access to sea. And he
We
was only trying to get the little corridor he will get to
from
get direct access
Abeokuta,
to
which
the
is
sea.
Abeokuta's territory. He wants to take it from Abeokuta, and they are using the same isolationist, which they use in Ekiti area. They will tell your neighbors, "Oh, don't join them. We just want to attack this." Then they kill that
I'm
people.
not
Then they
comfortable with this
attack you.
attack on Ibadan. I'm not. I'm not.
Look, I'm partly bad. I'm
I'm
not
not.
attacking. We're putting history in context. So let's say that's just what happened. And they asked Ijebu not to. Ijebu join now because they know that if they succeed in destroying the Egbas, it will come on them too. But let's talk about it next week. That's what I just want to add to it. Yeah. Thank
Yeah,
you.
we need to put the perspectives in place. Yeah. Mm.
So, Ife, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Um, I'm so happy joining this room today, and I think what you guys are doing here is actually uh, it's a gem. It's one of a kind, and it's long overdue, because many of us grew up not having the opportunity to actually know our history. We were told the fraudulent Nigerian history that does nothing for anyone. But where I want to come in is, I think we should be careful of losing the insight of why this history classes or history lessons is important. I'll start from where the argument between Bonka and I think Olukotun. I think I when I was listening, I don't think Bonka said anything about maybe I'm sorry, and someone can try to correct me, but I think what Bonka said and the statement I remember was that you see that we Yorubas have a problem of calling outsiders into our own problem. He didn't say the Jesha or the Ekiti or someone were the people that called. And then he made reference to other times in history where,
Thank you so much, Ife. You are very much right with that. Sorry
yeah,
for interjecting you.
yeah, thank you. So where others have called others into their ruckus, and it had turned badly, and we have very many examples in history coming from Alfonja, even to today's people like Obafemi Awolowo and stuff like that. I think what we should do in this classes is to pick out, the lessons of what not to do, because at the end of the day, history teaches us what not to do. Tọmọdé bá ṣubú á wo wájú, tágbà bá ṣubú á wo ẹ̀yìn. By now, Yoruba should learn that no matter what,
Wàá
once
pa
you
mí
call
nínú
in,
òwe.
bẹ́ẹ̀ni, once you call in an outsider to come and help you defeat your brother, no matter what is going on, first of all, think about what is the motive aim of the person that you are calling in. So I just want us to, instead of trying to say,
Thank
oh, this
you.
person was the wrong person, this
Motive.
person was the right person, What are you learning? What are you bringing out from this history that has happened in the past? Because at the end of the day, we carry the DNA of our ancestors, and we are bound to repeat
You
their
are a
mistakes.
darling,
We
Ife.
don't learn from it. So that's what I just want to say. As you learn, keep all those things in mind, that you are trying to draw out what do we not do later, what do we not repeat again, so we don't fall into the same problem, instead of arguing who was right, who was wrong, and who was that. We have departed from the days of our ancestors, but those lessons in history has not departed, and we are bound to repeat those mistakes again if we don't take care. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Ife Dolapo. Our fathers, that is what you should learn from our mothers. Thank you so much. I think you really make a big point. This is what we should be looking at, not as an who is wrong, who is right, how was it, how it was, how it is. The thing is, history is history. Thank you so much, Ife.
You're
Do we
welcome.
have any? Kabiyesi, go ahead, please. Thank you.
Yeah, the only thing I want to add to this is that I want us to know that both Ibadan, Oyo, Idisha, Ekiti, Egba, Ijebu, Ondo, and all Igbomina, we are all Yorubas. So whatever happened in the past, we cannot do anything about it and to do better in future or in this present day. We should do better. That is what I believe we can do. But when we are talking about what has gone down in the past, we have different perspective, we have different interpretation, and we have different view. And based on sentiment, we have those we like, those we don't like, those we resent, and all that. But let's say this. Uh, Before I drop mic, I will just use the opportunity to say one thing to all the Jesha people in the house. I want you to know that your forefathers fought a good fight of faith. They stood their ground, they defended their land, and our land is still as important to us as then. So, ẹ̀yin Ìjẹ̀ṣà, ọmọ Obòkun, Obòkun á gbé gbogbo wa, gbogbo àwa Yorùbá náà, ilẹ̀ wa á san wá. The next time we'll be able to do better. If there's things like what has happened in the past, like civil war, like whatever happened within Nigeria, I believe Yoruba will be united. We will do everything together for the success of our land. So whatever has passed has passed. Whatever interest we have in Ibadan, Ijesha, Ekiti, and all that, it's not going to change anything. We should just do better. We should know that we are one people. And finally, concerning the expansionists of Ijesha people, according to what Bonka said, uh, how are you, Jude? According to what Bonka said and according to what Remy said, I don't believe, I believe what happened then is border issue. Because if you look at Efun Alaye, as Olukotun said, there you almost see today Efun use Ilesha light. We connected the light we use in Elisha is what Efon people use. And if you look at the issue we had with Ife people, till today, Iwara Ife, is still there, and one way or the other, we still see ourselves as one. But but I don't believe it's about expansionism. It's about protecting our border, because that is why many of us in Ijesha land, you see Akinleye, Akinwale, Akin this, Akin that, because many of our forefathers involved in these wars and whatever has happened in the past. But today, we are one. We are one Yoruba. We are one great people. We are one great Yoruba people. And may the Onile be with us. And may the Onile never see anything that will, may the Onile never allow us to see anything that will separate us in the future. God bless Yoruba.
Ashe.
Okay, I think this is a good place to to round off because it's a sensitive topic, and I try to avoid the sensitive parts because it's the idea is not to bring old tensions, because you see this, the reason why I want to do this Ekiti-Parapor war is because I want to explain the issues that were happening in the First Republic. When you see the way Akintola was reasoning, the way Awolowo was reasoning, the way, what was that guy in Ibadan, Mabolaje, the way he was reasoning, all these things had a lot to do with Penkelemes, Adelabu. It all had to do with Ekiti-Parapor. And that was a 16-year-old war. And even if you look at the events that led to Biafra War, most of the sentiments that our people were using was Ekiti-Parapor. So Ekiti-Parapor War did a lot of damage. Thank God for Awolowo that came and helped us to patch it together. And we were able to, if Awolowo did not evolve, if somebody did not evolve like him at that time to help us put the glue back together, well, but I'm happy that it didn't go the way I was fearing it would. I'm happy we were still able to get some wisdom out. Thank you very much. So I guess this is a good place to round up. Abi, Mama Ejide.
Yeah, we can round off. Thank you so much, Baba Gunka. You really did a good job. I think that is the most important has been said. At the end of the day, we are all Yorubas, but the fear is just as in what you just said now. The 16 years that was gone. I mean, this kind of still repeating itself after 16 years. And if we really notice, I mean, for me, I might be wrong. Just between three, Baba Olukotun, Baremi, and I could still see something like that. It shouldn't. I think this we should avoid. We are all Yorubas at the end of the day. Let's learn from the past, and we shouldn't allow the past to repeat.
No, so Olukotun is an Ijesha man. So it's understandable that he would see some things from that perspective.
Yeah, I
And
really
he's a
understand.
man
I
I
really
actually
understand.
respect a lot. So I mean,
Fine, fine,
yeah,
fine, Baba Wonka. I understand
yeah.
this, but at the end of the day, it's obvious that the sentiment is still there. We should try and walk over the sentiment. We are all Yorubas at the end of the day. And what is facing us today is more than that. We know this. We cannot deny this. So that is it. So if we are not out of our sentiment, how can we really combat what we have today? So the sentiment should be completely, we should really work on the sentiment and let's get rid of the sentiment. It is gone. Those are history. None of us were there then. So thank you so much. I mean, you wonderful submission, Remy, and those that give submission, KBAC, everybody. Thank you so much. We really appreciate. So till the next section. Thank you, Baba Gonka. You can close the room.
Yes, ma.
Yes, ma'am.
She like me on a fresh machine to Sally what I own. Yeah. Make you what I own. Sally what I own.
ayé ti wá dáadé báyìí o ṣé àwọn àgbà bọ̀ wọ́n ní bí ebi bá kúrò nínú iṣẹ́ ti bùṣe èyí ló mú àjọ adójútèbí ni Àkànní Akànjí Farm pèsè àwọn èrè oko fún jíjẹ ní ìrọ̀rùn láìsí àbàwọ́n kan àti ìnira rárá. Àwọn èrè oko bíi àgbàdo, ẹ̀gẹ́, iṣu, ewébẹ̀ àti àwọn èso lóríṣiríṣi, ẹran ìgbẹ́, ẹja odò, ìgbín àti bẹ́ẹ̀ bẹ́ẹ̀ lọ. A tún ń ta àwọn ohun jíjẹ fún àwọn oníbàárà wa tí wọn kò bá lówó lọ́wọ́ lásìkò àti ra oúnjẹ lọ́dọ̀ wa, ṣùgbọ́n tí wọ́n sì ṣe ìlérí wípé wọn yóò san owó náà padà kété tí wọ́n bá ti rí owó náà níparí oṣù. Pàpàǹbarì rẹ̀ ni wípé a tún lè kó èyíkéyìí nínú àwọn èrè oko lọ káàkiri àgbàlá ayé. Ẹ̀yin ẹ ṣáà ti kàn sí wa lórí ẹ̀rọ ìbánisọ̀rọ̀ Àkànní Akànjí Farm 08034564577 àti 09077901303. Àkànní Akànjí Farms àwà fún yín lọ́jọ́kọ́jọ́.